who would be first to be speaking tonight.
Looks like Will Shufflebean.
Mr. Shuffleback. It's okay.
Okay. Sorry I didn't dress up. It's been a few months since I've worn dress pants, so.
There's no audio. There's no audio for the online. Okay, sorry.
Awesome. So, good evening, board members. My name is Will Shufflebein, and I'm a former student, former district employee, current taxpayer, and my nieces are in the district. It's been a while since I've addressed you all, but wanted to speak before you vote on this proposal today. Dunlap has historically been ranked one of the best school districts outside of the Chicago metropolitan area. Some will argue that is due to economic opportunity, and yes, that may have a part to this, and this is something we can't take out of the equation. But above all, it is due to the historic, healthy dynamic that has always been present between the board, administration, teachers, parents, and students. Has that dynamic changed? I work for Caterpillar, and to this day, we hire Dunlap students that are well-rounded because Dunlap teachers provided them a challenging curriculum and engage with them before and after school hours. I even stick up for those students when they begin the interview process because they are fellow Eagles. The Dunlap dynamic and legacy has not changed. So why are we all here? Coronavirus. Let's try to keep that at the core of this discussion. For some, they want that narrative changed. We all know that going back to work and having the kids at home is not ideal. We all know working from home and having the kids at home is also not ideal. Guess what? That is not Dunlap's concern. We all pay taxes so that students can receive a wholesome, all-inclusive, and challenging education. Dunlap is not anyone's scapegoat to having convenient childcare. We are talking about safety here. Yes, some students can attend school, but some definitely cannot. Regardless if the CDC or the Illinois Department of Public Health says that children may be less susceptible to catching the virus. But what about our older population of staff? What do health officials say about them? Why would we go back to what we were doing before the coronavirus if there is no solution yet? There have been discussions surrounding outsourcing teachers from individuals in the district. I can tell you, as a recent college graduate and new employee in the workforce, adapting to change is key to young adulthood. But when most young children still don't know what is going on and think we are on one big extended vacation, why would we throw another wrench in the equation? If we can keep their lives as consistent as possible with the teachers they know, then why wouldn't we do that? Do you think an outsourced teacher would be there if a student is having issues at home? Do you think that an outsourced teacher would show up when a student loses a loved one? Do you think an outsourced teacher is going to give students the time of day after hours? You know who was there for me when I had these problems? Mary Nelson, Sally Pula, Shauna Segler, Rebecca Irwin, Stacy Berg, Randy Black, Mark Rowe, Jody Brooks, and others after school hours. If parents are having issues with the teachers in the district and feel that outsourcing teachers is their scapegoat to having hard conversations, then this is not a district issue and is a maturity issue. This has even resorted into individuals ridiculing our teachers online, which is unacceptable during a difficult time as this. I'm super proud with the work you have all put into this, the board. Yes, there are aspects that a small group of people don't think of and need to revisit, but the framework is there. I have not normally been a fan with the decisions that have been made regarding my former alma mater. But the condensed schedule is a solid plan that accounts for children's safety, teacher safety, and still allows the robust Dunlap curriculum with our teachers implementing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Linda Smith, and I live at 7018 Draycott, Peoria. I have a high school student and a recent graduate. And I just wanted to address a couple of concerns. First, with the packet that went out. on page, right in the middle of the page 3, they're talking about...
I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith, could you speak a little bit louder?
Sure.
Thank you.
I would like the implementation of this to be carefully considered in the statement in the return to school plan will supersede all conflicting student handbooks, curriculum guides, policies, procedures, and language, since all of those have been voted upon and debated, and we still need our policies and procedures. And then as I went through all of this, trying to figure out what the remote learning would be, it still kind of looks like what we're going to do is what we did in the spring, which is asynchronous, where the children go get their assignments, and then they do them online, and a teacher's available in the afternoon to help them. And I can tell you, at least from my experience, that that didn't work. I would like to see some sort of, I would like to see the full day with the full remote, but I know everybody's right. I've read everything on social media. Every option is right, every comment is right, and we're just in a difficult situation where we're going to have to make a decision and do what's best for our kids and make sure that they learn at the same time. And I think the only thing that everyone agrees upon is that they want Dunlap teachers teaching their students, which is quite a compliment to our teachers and staff. So in seeking solutions, I know that the single option doesn't work for everyone, but if you make it structured and consistent for all learners, families may be more comfortable sending their kids to school. They may be more comfortable keeping them home. And if they have the same education regardless if they're at home or at school, then maybe the schools won't be so overcrowded and there'd be space for everybody. And then if there is an outbreak and schools close, the transition from classroom to remote would be as seamless as possible, or probably the most seamless option. It would require technology updates and training for students and teachers, and it would take time and funding. And we could consider starting school after Labor Day to get all of this set up for any option. And we could, and I'd be willing to write grants for Dunlap. I've offered to do so. There's private and public grants that are available. I've written grants for another school district before. And then another way to decrease the high school population is to fully embrace the ICC dual credit program, in which juniors and seniors can take dual credit classes at ICC. We do this partially now with Dunlap teachers, but if we fully implement this, the kids can go to ICC, get dual credit, and they can take, I think they're being delivered virtually through Zoom right now. So I would like to see that as an option, because we don't want to deprive our kids of time. They could get credits for college and for high school at the same time. Money, because it's cheaper to get an associate's degree than it would be to go to a four-year school. Or opportunity, where they can graduate with an associate's degree and not have to go to a four-year college. I hope we consider an option that makes it fair for both the students who are remote and the students who are at home. So thank you for your consideration. I appreciate all the work that you've all done on this.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Harrison, and I'm a language arts teacher at Dunlap High School. I would like to address an important advantage of the condensed schedule proposal for return to school. Just as it is ill-advised to disregard the medical recommendations of a doctor with regard to one's health, or the technical recommendations of a mechanic with regards to one's vehicle, it is equally ill-advised to disregard the recommendations of educators with regard to one's schools. Communities are composed of parents, teachers, administrators, support personnel, politicians, and students. Of these, students are the most important. Please show them that they come first by modeling flexibility and embracing necessary change to secure their continued safety and their best interests. Educators in Dunlap always put students first. Let us continue to do so. If you fail to acknowledge that the educational staff you employ are fully qualified and place the interest of students above all else, how do you explain the exceptional students that emerge from this district? I know educators appear to be superhuman, but they're not. They get sick, they cannot suspend time, They are tethered to the real world and limited by the hours in a day. What we all know to be true is that what is best for students is to produce and deliver engaging, rigorous instruction for them through quality lessons and activities, to build strong relationships with them, to provide them detailed feedback, to construct meaningful assessments for them, to effectively communicate with them and with their parents. This requires time. The world has changed. Teachers can no longer get by with teaching all day, planning and responding to communications all night, and grading all weekend. Personal, social, and financial responsibilities have been severely impacted by this unprecedented crisis. Teachers will continue to teach, plan, communicate, grade, assess, and support, but they must be allowed time during the day to meet these demands. The committee's proposed condensed schedule allows for this. The other proposal does not. The committees that crafted the plan before you exhibited amazing foresight in addressing the potential benefits and pitfalls of the working components of a school district. Transportation, safety, buildings, materials, finances, regulations, staffing, curriculum, food service, maintenance, and time constraints must all be accommodated. Their ability to see the big picture is uncanny, and the big picture is what we must embrace if we are to not only survive, but to excel. Unless the condensed schedule is adopted, we will be asking all stakeholders to go back to normal when the circumstances are the furthest from normal I hope they will ever be. We would all like to return to business as usual, but it is sadly and very simply not feasible at this time. And until it is, I respectfully request you approve the committee's recommendation for the condensed schedule return to school plan. Please give educators the time required to provide students the education they deserve. Thank you for your time and for your service to this district.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're next.
Good evening, everyone. I had to wave to my family, sorry. My name is Sabrina Appel, and I live on 1117 West Deerbrook Drive, Peoria, Illinois. I would like to start off by expressing gratitude to all teachers, board members, curriculum directors, superintendent, committee members, extended Dunlap staff, administration, all parents, students, and guardians of our students. Thank you all for the precious time, effort, and numerous discussions. Thank you. What I'm about to share with you is so hard to do because of the current impossible circumstance. With that stated, I would like to bring all of your attention to the data I collected from a poll on social media from over 100 families. I have a spreadsheet with all the names that I can share with the board if needed in privacy. We have 48% of these families in favor of remote learning to be provided by Dunlap teachers. 35% supporting proposed condensed schedule, 16% supporting a full day with remote being outsourced, and 2% supporting for a new plan. Now, on behalf of the following parents whose names and contacts I can also give the board in an access, or board access in an email to preserve privacy, I would like to read the following concerns with remote learning. The first one. The board is using survey results that were sent out in June 2020. At the previous special meeting held on July 23rd, the proposed plan was released and modified in the following days. No communication was sent out to all the stakeholders providing details of remote learning options that were modified in the new plan. There was no survey sent out to all stakeholders to gather new data. The existing documentation and frequently asked questions also do not provide sufficient details about remote learning options, leaving much to speculation. The board is scheduled to vote today on the plan July 29th, 2020. If the board chooses to accept the full-day proposal with outsourced remote learning, many families will be locked into an outsourced remote learning plan that has not been communicated, violating ISB guidelines listed on page 7, 19, and 22. How can parents make a choice by August 3rd without knowing how education will be impacted for their students, staff, teachers, and administration? It has been indicated that third-party outsourcing is an added expense. Can this expense be used differently so that it is used to pay teachers or other staff members to address remote learning with full-day schedule? One question would be, if online courses are through a company called Edgenuity, does the district's license include live teaching component advertised on their site? One of the responses indicated that students will be reevaluated for using Edgenuity? Why should the students be reevaluated when the response claims that using Edgenuity also means quote, while the medium is different, the learning standards to which the students are being exposed are the same. Making families choose Edgenuity for remote is going to increase in-person student count, making it harder for teachers and school administration to maintain social distancing protocols and guidelines, increasing the risk of COVID spread and transmission. Can you consider a better option? And concern. How will the remote learning with Edgenuity affect IEPs or 504s? There is no documentation from the school district officially addressing concerns of students with special needs. A big concern is that Edgenuity would not provide the individualized support and care that our Dunlap teachers provide. My big concern with Edgenuity is curriculum content. Resources that have used this before inform us that online classes do not have an in-person counterpart so that they follow that curriculum. How will this issue be addressed by Dunlap District, or will Edgenuity follow Dunlap curriculum? A grade may have multiple sections like in elementary. Each teacher has their style, but the curriculum taught and the work done is pretty much the same. Will this be the same for all remote learners? Considering special circumstances, can the course offerings be adjusted at the high school level, grades 9 to 11, so that all subjects that need to be outsourced can be taken in the year 21-22, so that only Dunlap teachers are teaching remote and nothing needs to be outsourced? Why do we need to outsource when there are enough Dunlap teachers to teach middle and high school level, or they want to teach it remotely? My child is medically fragile. For us, the choice to e-learn is not really a choice at all, and we have been advised by a doctor to learn from home. Unfortunately, she did not do well with e-learning last year and needs face-to-face instruction. How will this plan distinguish between those who simply choose e-learning versus those with a provable illness that have no better option? Will the medically fragile be guaranteed seats when they return to school? What assurances can the district offer for equity with those able to learn in person? Can they receive a homebound teacher support under 504 or IEP OHI? The lack of public discussion regarding the at-risk students is concerning. How will e-learning be handled when a student or staff tests positive and the school is closed for 2 to 5 days?
Excuse me, you have like 10 minutes, or I'm sorry, 10 seconds to finish up. You've gone over 5 minutes, so.
If a vaccine were to come out, would that affect the process of letting students back into school? How will remote elementary students be connected to their home elementary schools if they are combined with other remote students across the district? I would like to request 30 seconds more. The last concern I have is a personal one. Some of the comments made on social media have the tone that a parent's colleague at CDC will write to the school board in support of full-day plans. The tone used in several posts indicate that the board will agree to this CDC employee. I would like to confirm where the board stands on this. Will the board follow local health department guidelines, ISBE guidelines, stakeholder input, federal government guidelines, or CDC guidelines? Thank you all very much for allowing me the opportunity to present all these concerns. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Evans. I live here in the district with Nina Bush. We have an 8-year-old at Hickory Grove and a 4-year-old that will go to Hickory Grove next year. I appreciate all your efforts. This is a difficult time. I'm in favor of e-learning for the older kids and not for the younger kids. I make a distinction, and I'd like to talk about that distinction a little bit. I come from the perspective of a homeschooler. I have 2 sons in their 20s that were homeschooled in elementary school and in middle school. They went to a public high school and public colleges. In my experience, both with them and last spring, the e-learning does not work well for young children. It takes a tremendous amount of parent time to keep them focused and keep them on task. But in contrast, high schoolers can excel with e-learning. So what I'm hearing is the loss of that distinction. And I think it would be helpful if we address the student needs a little more precisely based on age. I have a few comments from Nina, who is not able to make it this evening, and so I'd just like to read her comments quickly. Thank you to the board members that have responded to parents, teachers, and community members. I wish I could attend in person, but for the last 2 months, many Dunlap students in elementary through high school have been rehearsing for a musical at Three Sisters Park, 6 days a week, 6 hours a day, all while practicing social distancing. This Their show is this week. I add this piece of information because it is important to note that many students on all levels have been resuming a new kind of normal, whether it's in theater, recreational sports, summer camps, or vacations. Everyone is focused on staying healthy. Nina says she has sent to you a comprehensive list of concerns from families who are opposed to a modified school day schedule for elementary age children. As of last night, she had spoken to more than 200 families who are against this schedule for these youngsters. She won't be able to touch on every family's circumstance, but here are a few of the highlights. First, kids are safest at school. Small groups limit exposure. We have a 4-year-old who's in a daycare and has been since the 1st of June. Small groups, no COVID. It works, small groups. The difficulty with having a modified schedule is that kids then mingle with other groups and it amplifies the risk. It's an unnecessary risk. Most of the 200 families that contacted Nina do not have the flexibility of e-learning. Their jobs simply don't permit it. Certainly, if parents have that capacity, they would of course keep their kids home. It's only those people that don't have that flexibility that are really pressured right now. And I would hope that you would take that into consideration. After-school programs mingle the students, and that heightens their risk of transmission. Right at school or other after-school programs, they simply don't keep the kids in the same group that they were in when they were at school. Using high school students kind of expands that risk profile because the children are exposed to all the kids that the high school kids interacted with. Again, that's amplifying risk unnecessarily. There's a cost issue. Extended care is impossible to come by at this time, and even if it were available, that cost is beyond the means of some of the families in this district. I think that should be a matter that is at least taken into consideration of how do we accommodate everyone in our community. Another item is employer accommodations. Many employers are willing to allow flex schedules to allow parents to pick up their children after school so that they are not in an after-school program, again, limiting that risk. But those same employers have a problem with having the parents leave half days. They would then have to take PTO time, half days, and miss a great deal of work. So that, again, is working with the differences in the employers in our area. Last item is lunch. It's been raised in this issue, but Right at School was given permission per their own statement by principals to spread throughout the school and have extra access. And for those families who have a means to pay for Right at School, their children can eat at school, but for those that can't do that, then they go to an after-school program and have a difficult time having their lunch because they can't bring lunch into those programs. Her summary is, I'm very glad that families will have the option to e-learn regardless of the decision tonight.
Thank you so much.
Andrea Paulo.
Good evening. I'm Andrea Moriarty, and I address you as the mom of 3 Hickory Grove students. Thank you for all your efforts, but as a college professor, I'm going to be teaching fully online in the fall, which for my family has given us a flexibility to think about the idea of keeping our children at home. The reasoning behind our choice is that there are families who don't have that flexibility, that need their child in that condensed plan or in that other plan, and keeps our classrooms sizes smaller to protect our teachers. However, after talking to many other families in similar situations where e-learning would work for us, and reading your proposal, there is that fine print that says that, yes, we will commit to the 6 months. I think that's a fantastic idea to keep that exposure limited. But if our children wanted to return to the school in the spring, they might not make it because of space. We need to address that those of us who are choosing or needing the e-learning have to have that option that come spring. We need to address space issues to allow that we all come back if we need to, because we are all part of Hickory Grove and our district, and we never left Choosing the e-learning option didn't make us a new student trying to join the district. It just simply, from whatever perspective you're coming, it allowed the numbers in the building to be less, to protect the ones that are in the building, to facilitate the social distancing. So I beg you to understand that, like I said, after reading your document, that is the one line for me and those that are choosing the e-learning that is kind of, it leaves me uneasy to know that if I chose to keep my children home for the benefit of the ones that need to come to the school, I would be almost signing my children to a full year of e-learning, and that wouldn't be fair. So if you would please consider how we would approach that come the spring, I would thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tara.
Of the ones that need to come to the school, I would be almost signing my children to.
It's working.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tyra Pufal. My daughter is 8 years old, and she goes to Ridgeview Elementary. She actually did wonderful during e-learning, and it's only because of the fabulous teachers that are at that school. I actually have a written statement here from a Mr. Chad McDonald that I'd like to read to you. It reached a lot of people. A lot of people thought this is how they felt. So he had asked me to read this out loud to you. Dear Dunlap School Board Superintendent, tonight, as I was searching for words to write to express my opinion on how the school year should begin, I decided to review the proposed plan. I've also been reading social media boards and interacting with many parents. I am writing this letter to you because I cannot be in attendance at the board meeting where you will have to make a challenging decision. After you make that decision, parents and caregivers will also have to make a challenging decision. I appreciate the time, energy, and passion that you provide to Dunlap. I am in support of the condensed plan for District 323. When I read the strategic plan for Dunlap Community School, it starts with the district mission. The Dunlap School community empowers all students to reach their individual potentials. Reason number one that I support the condensed plan is that, in my opinion, the only plan on the table that supports all students is the condensed plan. The full-day version simply eliminates any online learners the environment to reach their full potential. The plan on the table for full-day contract curriculum and sets severe limitations on students by not offering AP courses and other advanced classes. I do not believe it is fair to call this a choice. Students may have health restrictions that are not their choice. Students cannot, in many situations, make the choice to attend. Dual credit classes are an option, but this also comes with additional costs to parents. So using them to fulfill basic graduation requirements will also place a hardship on families. As I dug into the strategic plan more, I looked at the values and benefits and saw the following words: health and well-being, individual growth, and safety. This brings about reason number two. I support the condensed plan. I have not read or heard from anyone how under a full day option that we can follow guidelines and rules from the CDC, IDPH, and ISBE, and other governing bodies and feed the students. We cannot have more than 50 students in a given space. How do we keep them 6 feet apart without wearing masks? 6 feet is a standard establishment by the CDC for appropriate social distancing. Where do we find the extra space in buildings to spread out? Where do we find the extra staff to clean after each lunch area appropriately in between student groups? I could get into other reasons why I support the condensed plan, and if you'd like to engage in a discussion. I will leave my point at 2 because my fundamental belief is that we should support the district mission. The Dunlap School community empowers all students to reach their individual potential, and the full-day version does not provide all students the opportunity to reach their full potential. It cannot, while a good portion of our students will need to engage remotely and will be denied access to our fantastic district teachers and curriculum because that is being resourced. We also need the students to be in a place that is safe. Unfortunately, we do not have enough space to completely do it. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jenny Jager, and I'm the parent of a Dunlap Middle School student. Before I read my thoughts, I have thoughts to share of 2 people. One is one of our orchestra teachers was asking if we choose the full plan, it does not leave a time period for middle school students to do orchestra, band, or chorus. You might want to review that. The second statement I have is from a parent and a teacher, Jane Mason. She writes, "Thank you for your time listening to my concerns this evening. I'm sorry I'm not able to attend in person, but I'm thankful this could be read for me. My name is Jane Mason, and I'm a reading interventionist at one of our elementary schools with a master's degree in elementary education with administrative and reading specialist endorsements. I have also 2 children in the district. One will be in 8th grade and one in 9th grade, who are the opposite ends of the academic spectrum. One is in honors classes, the other receives a lot of academic support through an IEP due to learning disabilities. One of the members in our family is immunocompromised, so that enters into our decision-making about returning to school. There's nothing I want more than to be able to return to school as we typically would in a normal year. My children both learn best in person, and the student I see at school learn best in person. However, we've made this decision that our children will utilize the remote option as if the safety measures put in place are not enough for the risk we are willing to assume due to health conditions of a family member of. I will return to work because I have the benefit of seeing small groups of students, and I feel more comfortable with my own ability to control social distancing in this setting than I do with my own children in a classroom of 25 to 30 students. If I were a classroom teacher, I cannot say that I would return to work in person this year. I want to express my support for the condensed schedule option that was recommended by the board committees. They took a lot of time to look at all the factors involved in returning to school and determined that the best choice. It is disheartening to me that the recommendation of educational professionals may end up being disregarded. This plan minimizes some risks by eliminating lunch, reduces exposure for our specialist teachers who can see hundreds of students a day, provides staff to be available for substitute teaching in shortage of willing subs as anticipated, and gives families who feel they cannot choose in-person learning with a strong remote option. Yes, this plan does present some obstacles for childcare and reduces in-person instructional time. However, the committee chose the schedules for elementary and secondary levels to help with those issues. Elementary instructional time lost only about 25 minutes a day, and secondary instructional time will be addressed remotely. Secondary students will arrive home before elementary students to help with childcare if possible. I am sympathetic to families that would like a full-day option in order to lessen the need for childcare. I am fortunate that my children are old enough that this is not an issue for me. However, if full day is implemented, it comes at a cost to other families and staff members. Staff members will have to work in situations that are less safe. Families that need to choose remote will lose out on that relationship, knowledge, and expertise of Dunlap teachers and have to receive their instruction from a third-party source, which is much less interaction and feedback to help them learn. I'm surprised that a board, you may be considering this option for our remote learners, as you have typically championed high standards and increased opportunities for honors courses for our students, which this would not provide. In my ideal world, instruction for this school year would begin with everybody being remote, so the teachers would have all the time that they need to develop and implement lessons to be delivered in this way while meeting the safety needs of my family. However, I would not push for this plan, since there are other families with very different needs than mine and would leave their needs unaddressed. Comparatively, a full-day plan is ideal for some others, but leaves the needs of families like mine unaddressed. None of us want to be in this situation, but we need to find a compromise where everyone can have some of their needs met and our entire population is treated equitably. According to the survey taken about a month ago, there may be up to 50% of our families that choose remote. This is not an insignificant number. These students should not receive a lower quality education just because they're receiving instructions in a different physical location. Your job as a school board is not to provide instructions for some learners in person all day. It is to provide the safest and most equitable learning for all students in the district. A full-day schedule with the remote option provided by a third party is not equitable. Not for my child who will miss out on honors classes, not for my other child who will lose out on the benefit from collaboration her special needs education and general education teachers could have typically helped her achieve her goals, and not for any other student that falls anywhere between these two ends of the spectrum. I urge you to find a way for all Dunlap students to be taught by Dunlap teachers using the Dunlap curriculum. And for my own personal thoughts, as a parent, I feel the condensed plan is the only viable option. It allows parents to choose between in-person or remote. A strong remote option that remains part of our Dunlap curriculum and with our Dunlap teachers will help students return to school with minimal interruption. We need families to choose remote learning. It reduces the number of students in the building to help stay compliant with phase 4 and social distancing. This will help in the classrooms, hallways, and all shared spaces, and benefit the children who are in person as well. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sue Kreutz. I teach 4th grade at Wilder Waite. I want to start just by saying to all parents who are either listening or here that my heart feels for every one of you. My heart feels for all of us. None of us wanted to be in this situation. We all feel that kids need to be in school. We feel that parents need to work. We understand they need their children to be in a place where they can continue their academic growth in a safe place. And our teachers, our administrators, our board members, we all want to do whatever is in our power to see that happen. We're on the same side. But here we are, and of course it's not a unique place. Around the whole world, school districts grapple with the same issues that we are. It's still in the experimental stage, even for those who have made their decisions and begun. So we are somewhat the blind leading the blind. And I've waffled on what I felt was best for the kids. On one hand, I thought at one point, let's just go for it. Let's do the best we can and see what happens. On the other hand, I see the recommendations provided by medical experts, which, for the record, I believe in, and by the state board, and I can't imagine how we can come even close to social distancing, even when allowed to do so only as much as is possible. Yes, there are adjustments that we can make. Many teachers have already been in the classrooms doing so, removing extra tables, removing bookshelves, supplies, trying everything they can to find a little more space. But consistent, true space is simply not available. For those of you who aren't sure how much space we're able to provide, why don't you stop by and see? Typically, if all students are facing forward in rows, there's perhaps 2 feet between them. If any student needs to go to the bathroom, they'll most likely pass within a foot of quite a few students on their way to the door. Lunch in the classroom with 24 students? I can't imagine the aerosol particle assault that will be taking place. I hope that whoever in the community thinks lunch in the building at normal capacity is feasible will be at the front of the line to help supervise this germ fest. I was standing in Schnucks at the meat counter recently. Instead of choosing my meat, I found myself admiring the 4 different plexiglass shields they had up to protect the workers. Having researched what I found that these are called sneeze shields online, I knew that the cost of each was about $70. So here's about $280 just at the meat counter. Of course, the checkout people as well. And I started to ponder where all I've seen those signs. I'm sure you know too. McDonald's, the dry cleaner, the car dealer, the post office, Kroger, Walgreens, Ace Hardware, the library, even outdoor garden centers. The label at Schnucks is the same you see at many of these places, for the protection of our employees. Yet we plan to have an adult and 24-ish students share a 700-ish square foot space, with little fresh air transferring, and in many rooms, aged, loud air conditioners. We will have masks, one of the 2 things that are recommended to us. For many kids, that might be the same mask every day. We plan to have hand sanitizers and wipes, assuming the shortage coming will allow these to be supplied. And I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. The fact is, the places I mentioned, they're for-profit businesses. They're willing, they're able to, they must invest to protect their business. Sadly, we aren't in that situation, dollar-wise. And as far as I know at this point, no level of government is rushing to add dollars to help remedy the problems we face. The solutions are all costly and not probably feasible. Ideally, smaller desks in each classroom, sneeze shields at $70 a pop. Space, we can't create that. I'll segue here and say I've never been so happy to not be at all involved with social media as I am at this time. I hear of a few of the highlights, or perhaps we'll call them lowlights, and hopefully it's nobody in this room. But those who spout off toxic criticisms and insults with every idea that's presented, I cannot even grasp that this culture sometimes thinks that's how we problem solve. There are people out there who have no idea how much blood, sweat, and tears have gone into looking at this from every possible angle to try and find the best solution. Our union reps, our teachers on the committees, our principals, other administration, the school board. You have all listened to input from the community. You have researched other district plans. You've collaborated to come up with a plan that you hoped would offer some level of protection and meet student needs. And my thought is, if you haven't spent even half that energy, that time in exploring those options, collaborating with positive, constructive people, and losing sleep, step aside. Let them do the best they can with the few resources we have. Aside from physical resources, human resources that, as far as I know, we don't have anything in place to add to. Moving furniture in the building with no additional maintenance staff. Tending to sick children once school starts with no additional nursing staff.
30 seconds, please.
Providing social distance, et cetera. These are daunting challenges that we still have to address in the next couple of weeks. I have roughly 340 unused sick days. I'm praying I don't have to dig too deep into them as a result of choosing to teach. I'm sorry that my words don't really offer solutions, but please keep in mind, all of the public, that the great majority of teachers want very much what you do. They want to return to the class. We just hope not to be put there as canaries in the coal mine.
Good evening, my name is Jennifer Weber and I am a parent in the district. I am a former employee in the district and I'm actually here to read an email from another parent who could not be here tonight. Her name is Chrissy Malson and her address is 11022 North Trail Drive in Dunlap. Dunlap board members, thank you for your countless hours reading and answering concerns. We understand this is a challenging time for all Dunlap families. Sadly, we cannot attend tonight's meeting and are grateful that our concerns can be read for the board's consideration. My name is Chrissy Malson and my family has 2 children in the district. We would love it if our children could continue to be taught by Dunlap teachers. We are very concerned about the possibility that the board would outsource our children's education to an outside agency if we choose to keep our children at home. It feels as if we are being forced to put our children and family in a compromised situation. Either we send them to full 5-day school and risk the health of our family, but benefit from outstanding educators, our tax dollar support, or we choose to keep our children out of the classroom, but turn over our children's education to an unproven outside resource that doesn't understand the individual needs of our kids. This is especially concerning for families that have children with IEPs. We've seen others bring up the concern of those with IEPs, and though the board seems to be aware of the challenges, there has been no detailed explanation of how the district will meet these students' needs. Our family is in support of the condensed plan as we feel it gives the best balance between education and safety for our children, family, and teachers. Respectfully, Ike and Chrissy Malson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Paulo, and I am an upper-level honors and AP Spanish teacher at Dunlap High School. I will be starting my 17th year this fall. Additionally, my husband has been an aide for 7 years at an elementary life skills classroom for the district. We are also proud Dunlap parents. Our daughter is entering her freshman year at the high school, and our son will be a 5th grader at Wilder Waite. My family spends every day at a Dunlap school, both as students and employees, and we know of many families in this same situation. In addition to our 2 school children, we have an 18-month-old daughter at home. I am at high risk to contract COVID due to my autoimmune disorder. Additionally, my husband is a cancer survivor, meaning that he too is considered high risk. My own children are aware that their parents are high risk and that this virus can be deadly. My 10-year-old has already asked me to promise him I will not die as I return to my workplace. For him and for all the other families who share these kinds of worry,
I urge you as a board to choose a scheduling option that protects all of us while keeping the high standards of learning the Dunlap community has come to expect and enjoy. The facts support that remote learning is the safest route for all our students and staff until our region has firm control of this virus or a vaccine is available. The only option that is logical to me outside of remote learning is the condensed schedule. This allows for your teachers to give our Dunlap students the quality education and not have remote learning possibly outsourced. Outsourcing will lessen our education brand, education standards, and community expectations. It is also inappropriate for you to expect your teachers to support a full day of in-person classes and a full day of remote classes. From an employment standpoint, you're asking us to work 2 shifts of a job that is highly complex and both emotionally and physically exhausting without a pay raise or without even hazard pay, for also risking our health and safety and those of our families. We cannot go back into a normal school day when nothing about our world is normal. If the condensed half-day plan is passed, my own children will be staying home to learn remotely from the Dunlap teachers that I trust and respect, who will have the time to offer my children the notable quality Dunlap education. However, my husband and I, as employees, are still at high risk and have no option but to come into the buildings and do our jobs. For the record, I would be up here as a parent advocating for my children, even if I was not an educator at Dunlap. I hope you will keep my situation and those with similar situations in mind as you make this challenging decision that will have long-lasting impacts on our education system, our community, the level of respect our education system has in the area, and my health and the health of others. Usually by this time of year, I'm already done updating lesson plans and getting ready for the start of the school year. But this year, I've been making protective masks for my family and updating my will. The bottom line is that I do not want to break the promise I made to my son. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Leslie B. I've been a teacher in the Dunlap School District for 14 years and currently teach 3rd grade at Hickory Grove Elementary School. As a teacher, I am trusted by students, parents, and administration to keep everyone safe in my classroom. I follow designated routes to exit the building in case of a fire, teach students how to protect their heads in the event of a tornado, and practice hiding from potential shooters during lockdown drills. I am required to pass online safety certifications to prove I know protocols, from administering an EpiPen to selecting the correct fire extinguisher. Our schools have drills regularly to practice these safety measures and assure the experts that we can safeguard our students in an emergency. If a Peoria County Sheriff were to tell me that a student was visible during a lockdown drill, I would heed this expert advice and find a new hiding spot, as I am trusted with the safety of my students. The difference is that this pandemic is not a drill. It is an emergency happening in real time and has claimed nearly 150,000 American lives as of this meeting. That is 17,000 additional deaths in the 3 weeks since our school district announced its initial back-to-school plans. In this pandemic, experts have given their recommendations to stop the spread of COVID-19 and protect our communities from the virus. The CDC, IDPH, and AAP recommend social distancing, mask wearing, limiting gatherings, and decreasing exposure. If the teachers are expected to follow safety protocols and procedures in other emergencies, why is it that we are now ignoring guidelines like social distancing when the danger for students and staff in our schools has never been more real? Our own district created committees of teachers and administrators who are experts on their classrooms and buildings, experts We are experts on the day-to-day, and when we raise concerns about the safety of the proposed back-to-school plans, these are real concerns based on our professional insight that comes from our extended time in our classrooms and our buildings. One of the safety concerns between the two proposed plans is serving lunch at school. As an expert in my building, Hickory Grove Elementary School, I'm concerned about the safety of serving lunch. When my third grade class goes to lunch, there are 14 preschool through fourth grade classes using the same crowded length of hallway before entering the cafeteria, which already has another 6 classes eating. That is 20 classes with students closer than 6 feet apart. Taking my class to lunch at this time is an elementary school version of the Eisenhower Expressway in rush hour traffic. While before it was an inconvenience and a lesson in patience, now it is a major safety concern due to approximately 540 students in close contact when taking into account our average class size of 27 students. This anecdote is similar to many that I read in the 40 pages of questions and concerns from a survey of my fellow DEA members who are also experts in their classrooms and buildings. You have also received this document. I'm asking you to address those safety concerns and questions and listen to the experts, the ones who work for District 323 and the greater population. It goes without saying that the start of this school year is unlike any before it. This is the first school year in my 14 years of teaching that I feel unprepared to be trusted with the safety of my students based on the proposed reopening plans. And so I ask you, are you prepared? The school board is not only responsible and trusted with the safety of students, but also with the safety of teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, teachers' aides, counselors, interventionists, secretaries, nurses, librarians, custodians, bus drivers, and cafeteria staff, amongst others. Again, I ask you, are you prepared? Peoria County is at an orange warning level due to our continued rise in positive COVID cases. Again, are you prepared? A district expert stated in our last meeting the importance of open windows and ventilation for student safety in classrooms. Hickory Grove does not have any windows that open. Again, are you prepared? If there is any part of you that feels unprepared proceeding with these plans without addressing the safety concerns of your teachers and committees, I ask that you pause, delay the start of your school year, and address those concerns so that we can all be trusted with the safety of our students and staff. District 323 learns, but it also needs to learn safely. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm not a public speaker, and I'm not very good at it, so please bear with me. But at the same time, I'm an engineer and problem solver, so I'm going to jump to that directly without any formalities. First of all, I feel that these are the very unusual times and very difficult times, and there are a lot of unknowns and new factors. So I appreciate everybody trying to deal with that, but during these times, nobody should be expecting that things will be back to normal, whether that's teacher or parents. Everybody has to do something extra and compromise, so be prepared for that. Don't complain about small things like a little bit of extra work or I have to pay a little bit extra for daycare. So having said that, I feel that right now, I think we are compromising the safety and rushing to reopen the classes. And look at what is happening where even in the states, people try to reopen things and they have to re-shut down. And really a lot at risk. I think the online option, if done properly, I'm by the way part of CAT Digital. I know if you use the digital technology from the education perspective, online will never be same as the face-to-face, but it can get pretty darn close to it. And then do we want to risk for maybe a little bit of reduction in the education? But I do feel that there are other aspects which I learned that they are needed in terms of, from a school in terms of education, but also daycare and lunch. So that's a complex problem to solve, but we are trying to find one solution for all different needs. I think we need to separate education from maybe daycare and lunch requirements. I understand that is all needed, but trying to club them all together and throwing everybody in that mix is also exposing unnecessary extra people to risk. Like teachers, they don't have to be there. So if we try to solve education problem and daycare and lunch requirements slightly separately, we might find a better solution. So in that case, because I feel the condensed program is probably the worst of all, because it is not catering to our audience and exposing everybody to risk, especially if in a condensed program, the kids have to go to school and as well as to daycare, they will get double exposure. The better program may be something where either you go full-time and restrict, otherwise the best is everybody attends online classes and you find an alternative solution to provide for daycare and lunch needs. And you can do that maybe in some of the smaller groups. It might cost a little bit extra, but if that way, you'll be exposing your kids only to like fixed 10 people or something like that. But at the same time, what I'm seeing, we're trying to rush to the opening the classes and paying so much attention that we are compromising so much on the e-learning. And e-learning people are really asking mainly for education and not really demanding much. And if you're trying to compromise, especially outsourcing and other things, I think that's a wrong idea. We do need to provide level playing field for everybody and the same education. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Asya Adnan, and I'm going to be a senior here at Dunlap. And I've spoken to the school board before, trying to give the student perspective, so I'm back here again. And I just wanted to talk about extracurriculars and clubs. So extracurriculars and clubs are a huge part of the culture here at Dunlap, both at the middle school and the high school level. And while we focus on education, I think it's very important to acknowledge the importance of clubs as well. We have many high-achieving and hardworking students who use clubs as an extension of their hobbies and interests, such as Best Buddies, Baking Club, Fine Arts Club, and robotics. It allows us to create meaningful connections with others with the same interests as us, and many students also use clubs as a way to further themselves in leadership positions, especially for college applications. As a part of Best Buddies and Speech myself, two wonderful, amazing clubs, I've taken on leadership positions, and I've also created some incredible friendships and amazing experiences, which I'll cherish forever. So while we are in a very difficult time, and we worry about our education, we also have to realize that school is more than just the classes that we attend. So I'm just asking that we also put emphasis and effort to establishing and facilitating clubs and extracurriculars in a safe and meaningful way here. Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes everyone who's listed. Would anyone else like to speak?
And also, did we check with the other rooms?
You do that as well.
Good evening. My name is Susan Mayo, and I'm going to have a freshman at the high school this year. He will be our fourth child to go through the Dunlap district, so we've been around for a while. And I just want to, first of all, thank everybody, the teachers, the board, the support staff, everybody who has worked long and hard to try and figure this thing out, which there is no one answer. There's just no one answer to this. So I don't envy you. I'm glad I'm not in your seat, you guys either, as teachers. I'm a former teacher, and sounds a little greedy, but I'm glad I'm not teaching right now, because I would not want to be in your shoes. My heart goes out to you. And all the parents as well. I hadn't planned on speaking. Everybody came up with notes and everything, but just sitting here tonight, I feel compelled. When I came in, my first, my thought was in support of the condensed schedule. I think the online schedule or option, or the e-learning option is good as well. But the outsourcing, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I mean, there's got to be a way not to tack the extra responsibility onto what the teachers already have to do now, but why can't we figure out how to give all of our students, whatever choice they make, the same education? Obviously, it's not going to be the same in class as it would be online at home. And I know that's a difficult option for a lot of working parents. And I know in the spring, you know, my kiddo, as soon as he found out the grade couldn't lower, that adjusted his attitude. But, you know, he still maintained. So I get it, and I get it. We all have to do what's best for us in our family, and you guys have to figure out what's best for all of us. So I say no outsourcing. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. If I decide to keep him home, I need to know that he's getting the quality education as best as possible in this type of situation that he can. So as I leave tonight, you know, I'm thinking maybe online, e-learning, I keep calling it online, but I'm not a public speaker either. So again, I plan on probably doing the condensed version if that's what's available, but I really want to see the e-learning have the same quality education for those kids. And, you know, I have to, I don't know what the right answer is, but I'm going to have to make a decision as a parent in these unprecedented times with the information that I have. I'm going to have to make the best decision that I think is the best decision with the information that I have. Is it going to be right? I don't know. Is it wrong? I don't know. But I'm going to have to make that decision. And I just hope that you guys, you know, will listen to, you know, all this stuff and you know, make those options just as even across the board as possible.
Thank you.
So, thank you for listening.
Mr. Johnson, is that everyone?
Yes, I believe so. The live stream is down on its
No, I'm going to go after you.
Hi, my name is Diane Vespa. I'm a parent in the district. I have an incoming senior, and I have a graduate from last weekend. And I want to say to all of you, too, just like the others, I really appreciate everything that you're doing. Nobody signed up for this. Nobody expected this. I think we all have our personal story of hardship, whether it's for our child or whether it's for ourselves personally. The stories are very sad, and it is what it is, and I feel like we just have to put, you know, as big a smiley face as we can on it for our kids. I don't have a strong preference either way because my daughter is a senior, and she pretty much self-studies, and she's very disciplined. Would have been a lot harder if this had been my son, but my daughter's very self-disciplined, so I don't have that much. I think that whatever you decide on that, I think is going to work, although I would be absolutely opposed to the 100% e-learning. I don't think anybody recommends that. I don't think the College of Pediatrics thinks that. I think we do need to have an option for e-learning for both high-risk students and high-risk parents or people who have high-risk people at home, but I think some variation of classroom activity is called for. My biggest concern is the face mask requirement, and I understand that that's coming down from ISBE. I understand that's required, and I understand that you have limited flexibility on that.
But I don't know how much input you have on writing the policy. But I hope that the policy is gentle. I hope that the expectations are gentle. I hope that we don't inadvertently terrify our children. Some children, I know I have a problem wearing the masks. I just get anxious. And I would imagine that there's children out there too. And I won't, but I know children with tactile dysfunctions, okay, where they'll just scream when something unusual happens to them. So I am very fearful about how is the mask going to be enforced in the classroom. And some teachers might enforce it harder than others, which is going to confuse the kids and maybe scare the kids, possibly, potentially. Okay, these are just things that I'm worried about. So I hope when you're writing the policy for the masks, it's very gentle. We remember that there's children involved. I think if you watch the news, you see all kinds of instances where even our governor, CNN reporters, Dr. Fauci, they're all at times not complying with the mask requirement. And that's because it's the human experience, and that's too much to ask that people are going to be 100% all the time, always thinking about this kind of thing. And so I would ask that as you're considering the policy and writing the policy, that you remember we are dealing with children. And I do have articles, and I'm not going to bore you with them, but I'd be happy to give them to you. Transmission from children to adults is very, very low. Very, very low. And I'd be happy to give you the data on that, but I won't bore that with you today. So that would be the only thing that I would like to leave you with and express is I really hope that we're very gentle with the expectations of our children, because I think we're asking a lot of them. Often when there's dissension in the world, I think the kids sometimes pay the biggest price. And let's not make it be here. And not saying that we don't have wonderful teachers and very compassionate teachers, but I'm concerned about different people with different expectations. So if everybody could just be mindful of that when you're considering policy, I would ask that. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I wasn't planning on talking either, but my name's Sue Whitson. I have one that just aged out of the school district at 22, who was in the Pathways program at the high school, and I have a incoming sophomore. But I'm also a bus driver. I've done many things in the school district here. I started out back in '93 as a volleyball coach and assistant volleyball coach and an aide at that time, because I'm not high school level. I'm K through 9. I have a teaching degree, but don't use it. But anyway, so I've been in and out, done many different things in the district throughout the 20 years, 25 years I've been here. But my concern right now is I'm surprised that there's no other bus drivers here. Well, I'm sorry, there is one other. But my concern is there hasn't been any discussion or any talk that I know of about buses. Same thing as in the classroom. You're even in a smaller area on a bus. I mean, there's very little room to walk through. There hasn't been any, as far as I know, discussion with my boss. Maybe I'm incorrect, but as far as how we're going to deal with the bus situation, I know it's 49 kids or 50 kids I've heard on a bus. We haven't sent anything, as far as I know, out to parents saying who's going to ride the bus and who isn't. I was told that we will probably have to have seating charts, which is fine in the morning as I go one big loop for my grade school. First on, we'll go all the way to the back and fill in from there. But, how do you do it? Every other seat and this way and that way. Families can sit together, I'm thinking. I don't know. But there really hasn't been any discussion about buses. And I'm lost in what I'm going to do. And then, it's fine if we get it first on, go all the way to the back and fill in from there. But in the afternoon, how are we going to get the kids on our bus in the afternoon? Can't do it in the same order because they all come out grade level. I mean, unless that gets changed too. But I don't even know what we're going to do to get kids on our bus. I mean, you can't say, okay, just let them come on the bus in the afternoon and then do all the stops. They're going to be going in between other kids. So I just wish there was some discussion about that as well. I mean, education is important, but if we do decide to either go full day or condensed or whatever, my mind changes every second on what I think to do because of social media. Everybody has their opinion, and yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, that sounds great, but everybody is different, and I don't know. Personally, I think I know what my daughter could do. She's very smart and can do stuff on her own. She never asks questions, so I'm lucky in that way. But I've also been through the school district with a special needs child, and one of the first ones that needed instructional, and they finally did it when she was in 3rd grade, not in 2nd grade or kindergarten or whatever. So we've involved a little bit, but you know, my concern, right, I mean, even for myself, I mean, if I'm the one who's going to be doing the temperatures in the morning as they get on the bus, you know who's going to be yelling at me if I say this kid's temperature isn't okay to get on the bus. You know, they're going to be taking out on us bus drivers as well. And understandably so, because I'm a parent as well as an employee. So, but I just hope, and I mean, our meeting isn't until August 6th. That's a week before school starts. And I'm lucky I have the same route every year. Hopefully I get the same route this year. But, you know, to know how to do a seating chart with my kids and where they live on what street and, you know, what order they would get on. But I think you're just expecting a lot from us bus drivers to be able to get those kids on the buses. And I just hope there's some discussion very soon, like tomorrow, after this is decided, on what we're going to be doing for our buses and our bus kiddos. We love our kids just as our own, and I want to make sure that they get on safely and get off safely as well. So.
Thank you. We have one more.
Hi, I'll be brief. Jen Christensen. I have 4 kids in the district, 2 in elementary, 1 in middle, and 1 in high school. I'm for the full day option. I know a lot of people didn't show up for that tonight for whatever reason. I feel a little hesitant to go into why I want the full day option because of the well-orchestrated presentation that is here tonight. And I just love my teachers and I support them. So I just want to say the IEPs, I think it would be very challenging or nearly impossible to meet IEPs with a condensed day. And that's a big passion of mine, and I feel like that's important. And I don't feel like anybody's expressed what would happen with those children if it's a condensed day, especially at all the grade levels. So I just wanted to point that out for the parents who have kids who will not get their IEPs met if we do the condensed day. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, are there other people outside that are waiting to speak? Thank you.
So do I have to go through my address and everything too, like say all that, or no?
I think they know where you live.
Okay. So hi, my name's Leslie Isbell, and I'm one of the teachers. And I know you guys have an incredibly difficult decision. There's no easy answer, but as far as from the teacher standpoint, we practice these safety drills all the time. Like we practice them before kids come. It's our job. But without knowing the things that are coming up and what needs to be in place, it's going to be very difficult to start school when we're supposed to start. I don't know if you've ever been in a job where you felt very unprepared. That's kind of how we feel. And going in to teach kids well, that's very difficult. To give them your 100% when you don't know what those safety measures are. So I just ask you to really consider that, because I don't know what the future holds for everybody, but I know everybody's situation is difficult and different. But being prepared is one of the things that we kind of hold ourselves highly on, and I think we need that extra time. So.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? Seeing none, this concludes the public participation portion of the meeting. The board will now move on to the information discussion items. After weeks and weeks of meetings, several meetings a week for several weeks, we have received hundreds of emails, and we have re-listened to many of those this evening. We do have a return to school plan that Mrs. Disharoon will review. And so information regarding that plan and options for parents addressed and motivated in the return to school plan is going to be presented. So Mrs. Disharoon, will you please continue?
Sure. I just wanted to ask, would the board like to go through it kind of page by page, or would you like to address kind of the bigger issues and then go through the smaller? It doesn't matter to me. Anybody have a preference?
I think you could just maybe highlight each issue and maybe highlight any of the changes that you're recommending.
Okay. Do you want me to go through the small changes?
If you can do that.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
Okay, on page 3, I passed this out to the board members. Just the little box, it says just a small change that the guidance outlined here will supersede conflicting student handbooks, curriculum guide policies, procedures, and language for the 2021 school year or until the district returns to normal operations. So what's in here will take precedence over those other things only when it conflicts. The next change on page 6 under face coverings and personal protective equipment, I recommend adding a line that says, except when students are outside or practicing social distancing. So before, I think it said require face masks for students and staff at all times. But I think it's really important that we, and I know the staff want to do this, they've talked about this on the committees, give children the opportunity to go outside whenever it's possible for PE, for recess, for lunch recess. And so I just thought it would be good to actually include that in there. Stop me, guys, if you have any questions. Under hand hygiene, we added upon entry to the classroom and school building. Under health screenings, I know that a number of the staff had wanted to not do temperature checks, but we heard from a number of health experts and parents and even some teachers and staff that many people really think that temperature checks should occur. So we're recommending that be a part of the plan, that temperature checks will be conducted for all students and staff in the building at the beginning of each day.
Karen, I think the issue was the random checks. They didn't want to be responsible for doing random, but I think several of the teachers in the health and wellness committee that I served on were okay with temperature checks. They just didn't want to have to say, you get one, you don't.
No, I was saying they are. I meant to say they were supportive of that.
Yes, thank you.
If I misspoke, I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
So yeah, no, so this plan would require temperature checks to be conducted, and if a student or staff member has a temperature of 104 or higher, there was
100.4.
100.4.
Sorry.
100.4. Right.
there was another part of the plan where in the transportation section where the staff had 100.4 was their measure, but in this section it said 99.8. So I spoke with Alyssa about this, and she agreed it should be consistent, and so I'm recommending the 100.4 because that's the CDC number.
Thank you.
And then, students would be placed in quarantine, a quarantine area if they were found to have a fever. Staff and students have to leave if they have the fever. I guess we did have a question, Alyssa, about, at least I did, about the high-risk students and staff section. There are just dot points that say aerosol generating procedures cannot be performed in schools, nebulizers, suctioning, oral, and tracheal. I didn't know what those dot points actually meant. So could you, maybe we could put a line up at the top that explains, are you saying students with those conditions are high risk?
If the student needs to receive a nebulizer, suctioning, oral, and trach, high flow oxygen, those cannot be performed at school. So we're letting families know that those areas cannot be performed at school.
Okay, so these...
They're either going to need to go with a remote learning option, or we're going to have to figure out a different schedule for their day.
So students with these conditions cannot attend in person?
Could they be, if it's just like once a day, could they exit the building, have their treatment, and return?
That you would need to work with the nurses on the plan, and that's kind of where I said...
If they chose, okay.
Because some of them may only need it,
once a day.
So we can talk about what that looks like.
So should we add a line that says students with these conditions cannot have these procedures done at school? Done at school. They, families need to work with staff to develop a plan for care?
Yeah, families need to work with the school nurse to develop a plan of care.
School nurse to develop a what?
A plan of care.
Plan of care, okay. Okay, that's good. So, everybody okay with that? Okay. Visitor plan, we felt that visitors should not be just out of hand restricted. It's a public school, and there are times when parents need to come in, and so I removed that section. But also that visitors should be screened upon arrival, and their temperature should be taken and checked. And if they have a temperature of 100.4 degrees or higher, that they will not be allowed to enter the building. So that was added. Any questions about that?
I think it should be under certain circumstances. I mean, visitors under approved circumstances, because, I mean, there will be situations, well, there have in the past, and I'm not sure what happened now, where parents may want to come just to drop off birthday flowers, or they want to eat lunch with their child, and I just don't think under these particular circumstances that should be allowed. But I think it should be, approved for approved reason.
I think it does say visitors must be pre-authorized.
Pre-authorized.
Well, I had removed that line, but I can put it back in if that's what the board thinks. I just feel like, if your student really did forget something that they need, or I don't know, there's a reason you need to come in. It almost seems like, I don't know if they'd be stopped at the door, like you can't come in, or who decides if they can come in, I guess.
Well, I would think that perhaps the secretary could screen the necessity for them to see their child. If they could leave something maybe at the desk, that would be one thing, but.
I guess at the high school, it's just a little harder, but.
I don't have a problem with your suggestion adding for approved reasons.
Approved reasons.
Okay, all visitors must be, or visitors will be allowed for approved reasons.
Pre-schedule, I think call ahead and see if that's allowable.
Pre-approved? Pre-approved. Okay, so we just use the line, authorization must be pre-authorized by building administration.
Or permission through the building secretary could check with the principal if there's a necessity for a parent to come. You call ahead and say,
so do you have language, or do you want that language? language.
Why don't you just say visitors must be authorized by building administration? Then if somebody comes and then administration can make a decision if it's an appropriate reason or not.
Visitors must be authorized by building administration?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or his or her designee. I mean, or sometimes you can't ask the principal if somebody can come and drop off of aspirin.
Everybody okay with that? Visitors must be authorized by building administration or designees?
Or the administrator's designee.
Or their designees? Okay.
Does that sound right to the principal?
So you want to take out the first line of visitors will be restricted by authorized personnel. So you want to take that line out and then we're just rewording the visitors must be authorized by building administration or their designee.
Yeah.
So that's the only really two changes in that area.
The only other one is that temperature checks will be required of all visitors. If they have a temperature of 100.4 degrees or higher, they will not be allowed to enter the building. That would be under the third dot point. I have this on a document that I'll share. Are you okay with that?
Visitors will be screened upon arrival, self-certification, so we can just put temperature checks as required.
Yeah.
And we'll add that to it.
Yeah. As well. That's what I have. Okay. The next change is on page 9, school dismissal. I just added a sentence in the beginning of this because I had no idea what it was getting at first, so I just kind of added an introductory sentence to kind of explain that in some instances, the Peoria County Health Department may recommend that we close a classroom, grade level, or school, and there may be an initial short-term dismissal for, and then I go into the explanation, because when I read it, it was confusing to me what we were talking about here. So it's really, there's no change, it's just kind of an introductory, explanatory sentence there. Next one is on page 10, under attendance. I suggest changing direct affected staff member or parent or guardian of affected student to call to ask. I don't know if we can really direct. So ask them to call the IDPH COVID-19 hotline, and then individuals must let the district nurse know if they have been in close contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID-19. Staff should maintain 6 feet distance from students at all times when times allow.
Karen, I have a question about this. There's a lot of symptoms here that perhaps could be symptoms of something different, like perhaps an ear infection or something different. So in all of these instances, are they to notify the health department, is what this says?
Are you talking about
am I on the right page?
Symptoms requiring absence? Or which section are you?
Attendance, right under attendance, symptoms requiring absence. So fever, cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, chills, fatigues, muscle and body aches, headaches, sore throat.
I had that same question actually. Alyssa?
The guidance we've received, this has been a topic of conversation because a runny nose, well, you just basically eliminated every kindergartner in the Dunlap district because they all have runny noses. You know, is it one symptom and you have to do this? Is it 2 symptoms? You know, and the guidance we've received is any one of these, and yes, you're supposed to make that call. So that's the information we were given.
Congestion, I mean, there's a lot of allergies, right?
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of phone calls. I just need to know what, is this the guidance that we have to use? It sounds like from what you're telling me.
Correct.
That is a recommendation.
Okay.
Oh, it's a recommendation.
And it's CDC, which is really the guidance we need to, I mean, we need to be preventative and make sure that we're protecting.
So it's not required.
I don't feel comfortable saying that we should take this out and just have fever or just a student.
Well, I'm just wondering if we should say the school nurse or building administration will make, decide. I mean, if they just have, and they know they have allergies and they just have congestion, I mean, are they really going to send home a student who has
Perhaps
chronic allergies?
Perhaps a doctor could, verify any chronic issues. If there's a question, they have to take their child to the doctor and maybe give them a doctor's note or something.
Or a note
test.
from a parent saying, alleging that they have.
It does seem too strong, or how you want to weaken it.
Do you have any suggestions for how that can be modified so that?
My suggestion would be that the school nurses will, that we keep this in here, and the school nurse can communicate with families and doctors, and if there is, a student that has allergies, that could be something that the school nurse in the building, administration can talk about, get more information, and look into it.
So should we have the will be sent home?
Unless the school nurse can verify good reason or something like that.
Have something like, unless
What do you think?
unless the school nurse.
Could it be a judgment call by the school nurse?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think maybe.
Maybe we can reword that, Karen?
I'm just thinking about the rewording of.
Can we delete congestion or runny nose so we'll have some kids in kindergarten?
Yeah.
You're right.
Hey, Karen, left for just a second. This is Cheryl. Karen, you said this to the board members right before the meeting. Are you guys looking at it up on the screen so everyone can see it?
No, we're not. I didn't get it done in time.
Okay, so, yeah, it's kind of difficult for people to comment and input might be really good.
This is the one that was on the packet.
No, it's not.
I mean, you're just changing the one that's on.
Right. That's true. I'm suggesting it changes to the plan that's in the packet, and I'm trying to mention the section of where I'm making recommendations.
Page 9.
So you could put it up there.
Can we put it up?
Yeah, can we go ahead and bring it up on so everyone can see it?
Page 9.
Matt is doing that.
Okay, super. Thanks.
Okay, so do you have any?
Something in there, the school nurse can work with parents and doctors to work out individual plans as a need or basis.
Yes, the school nurse can. Didn't hear you. Sorry.
The school nurse can work with parents and doctors to work out individual plans as the need arises.
Individual plans as the need arises.
With individual parents and doctors, physicians, as the need arises.
And or. Don't forget the doctor every time.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. Is everybody okay with that? Teresa, is that?
You good with that, Mike?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, and then page 10 of mine, but it may be different. So the next section will be under attendance, conditions requiring absence by staff and students.
Karen, before you drop down, just above attendance, there's a paragraph there. They need to stay away for 10 days from symptoms onset and go 72 hours without a fever. There was some new guidance that came out today.
Yeah, that's supposed to be 24.
I think it's 24 now. I think that came out today. So.
Yeah, and I did change it in a couple other places, but I missed that one.
Okay.
But I think we need to take a look at that, and that's a great point you have, because that's the same type of language that's in the attendance piece of it. All of these symptoms, congestion, runny nose, he or she will be asked to isolate, leave school, or should not come in for the day and need to stay away for 10 days.
For this?
It's the communication plan. If we have a positive case in the classroom setting, then the health department will notify those that need to be notified.
Right, but see the next paragraph?
Yeah, okay.
We need to do something with that.
It's right above attendance.
Right above attendance, it's that same paragraph I was discussing, that's symptoms requiring absence. That's a great point there. Do you see it, Alyssa?
That's got it at the top of the page.
So what are you suggesting?
Well, it should be something similar to what we had in that next paragraph, because if you read it, we'll have these kids out for 10 days for a runny nose, right?
You just say the same thing.
You're right.
Okay. Both places, that line, the school nurse will work, or can work.
School nurse can work with parents and physicians to work out individual
Okay. Okay. And then down a little bit further in that section, it's conditions requiring absence by staff and students. I think I just clarified the second dot point to say when an individual has been in close contact with someone who tested positive, individuals must let the district know. I just reworded it to make it simpler to understand. I don't think it changed. Staff should remain. And then on the third dot point, I changed the 99.5 degree temperature to 104. 100.4. And same thing in the next dot point. Sore throat with fever over 100.4.
Is it over or 100.4? I just see it both ways. So.
Alyssa, is it over 100.4 or is it 100.4 or over?
100.4 over.
Okay. We'll change that, 100.4 or over.
Because there's one earlier that had
Okay.
over.
Okay. And the next change is on page 11 under non-pharmacological intervention recommendations for communicable diseases. Recommending we just take out the word non-pharmacological just because that's a big word that's not needed. Okay. And then under curriculum instruction, learning options. So I suggest changing the word in the beginnings that says during phase 4 of the Restore Illinois plan, families will have 2 options. Option A will be an in-person instruction. Option B, a complete remote instruction. And then the next line, family choice can be revisited at the end of the first semester. We recommend deleting, however, it will be based on seat availability. So anybody disagree with that? Okay. So for those parents that mentioned that, we're taking out that line so that a person who chooses remote for the first semester will have a spot in person if they decide to change their mind at the end of the first semester.
Or they can go the opposite way.
Right, they could go the opposite way. Okay, and then for option A, in-person instruction, I'm recommending deleting condensed in-person schedule with remote afternoons and describing in the next section a full day schedule. So deleting the whole first paragraph and just instead replacing it with, and deleting the time, 7:40 a.m. to 1 p.m. And so the wording there would say, there will be a regular schedule for all elementary students opting for in-person learning. To minimize transitions and exposure, students will remain in their classrooms for specials, art, music, technology, and world language. The specials teachers will go to the classrooms instead of the students moving to the specials rooms. This was kind of the plan that was in the curriculum committee before they went to a condensed schedule, was to have students move, students not move, and the specials teachers move. And then the next part is taken out, and there's no change on that last paragraph. Then under option A, continued, middle and high school, deleting the 8:20 to 12 and saying middle and high school students will be in school for a full school day. And then in this section, I felt like there were a couple of different choices. So in our version board, I put an option 1 and an option 2. Option 1 would be, however, to minimize transmissions and resulting exposure, middle and high school students will follow a block schedule to include 3 classes per day of 128-minute blocks. There will be no locker use. Students will be allowed to carry their backpacks during the day to hold their books and supplies. Teachers are encouraged to find a place for backpacks to be placed so that they are not kept at the student's desk. And then option 2 would be, there will be a normal class schedule of 7 periods plus 0 hour. However, to minimize the length of transition times, there will be no locker use, and then kind of the same language about backpacks. So I think we should talk about it as a board, whether or not we think that it should be a block schedule for middle and high school or the regular schedule?
I think we need to go through this and then come back to that, Karen.
Okay.
See what all the other changes are.
Okay.
And then come back.
Okay, I'm just going to write myself a note. Option 1, block, and option 2, regular 7 period. Okay. And then, so I've deleted the schedule below that. And then under option B, complete remote instruction. This is no in-person attendance. And then the next line says families choosing option B, complete remote instruction, must understand that their choice can only be revisited on the end of the semester, December 22nd, 2020, and then I deleted again, pending in-person seat availability. Okay, and under elementary structure, devoted remote learning classroom teachers will provide remote learners with a daily schedule, making families aware of times where live real-time activities will occur versus independent learning. So, Dr. Dearman, you had said, I believe in a conversation we had, that having the teachers provide the remote instruction at the elementary level, you think will be more manageable because there will be remote-only teachers that will provide the remote students with that instruction. And that, say we didn't have enough teachers who had medical conditions to be remote only, then there would be a teacher assigned to teach remote only, correct?
That would be easier to do at the elementary level, correct?
Okay. So that's the plan at the elementary level, is to use Dunlap instructors to teach those students in a remote-only environment.
Depending on availability and the number of teachers that we have that fall into that category and the redistribution of class lists and what that could free up, that is a potential option.
So what would be the other option?
Well, I'll let the curriculum committee discuss this, so I'll defer to Matt and let you share what you guys discussed within curriculum committee.
What we had shared,
or Megan, sorry, Megan's
feel
back.
free to chime in, was to have at the elementary level, elementary teachers facilitate that in a remote-only fashion. What he's talking to you about the unknown of how many students will be engaging remote-only versus in-person, that's kind of the unknown factor that we need to know. As I said to the many parents who have reached out, we're doing a lot of speculating at this time as to what some of the barriers will be, the ingenuity option, things like that. That would be just a barrier there, I think.
No, that pretty much sums it up. That was what we initially discussed if we went all 5 days, and we were trying to go down that path to make sure that we have all the options. That's exactly what it is in terms of we'll pair remote students, remote teachers, and then any additional staff, if they're available, they can be remote teaching those remote students if needed.
So can we put something in here that we will not use Edgenuity, that we will use Dunlap teachers, or,
I don't think you can until you have the data.
You mean for elementary?
For elementary. I mean for this section right now. I mean, I thought from our conversation that you said we could handle that with not a big problem.
Would adding like devoted Dunlap remote learning classroom teachers, would that, or
what'd you say?
Devoted remote learning Dunlap classroom teachers will provide remote learners with the daily?
Yeah, I think that would be, I don't think you can just have, even if it doesn't work out, which I understand it may not, the numbers may not work out for every classroom, but I don't think you can have some on Edgenuity and some on.
We were hoping that wouldn't be the issue at the elementary level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess what we may need to do is once we get a survey back, we may need to come back as a board, and if we need to make some decisions regarding staffing needs, then we need to address those at that point. So I would recommend another meeting when we get that data back. Okay. So we'll change that to devoted remote learning Dunlap classroom teachers will provide remote learners. Okay, then middle and high school structure. To ensure consistent curriculum expectations with in-person learners, secondary students who choose complete remote learning will have their curriculum provided by Dunlap teachers instead of online curriculum platforms when possible. Students will follow the middle school and high school schedules provided above in option A each day of the week to know which classes are in the day's focus. I'm thinking this part was supposed to be out.
That sounds like the block piece of it.
What?
Was that the block piece of it?
I think that part's supposed to be out. So, I'm sorry I missed that, but I think that section is supposed to be out. So the next part is remote learning options. When there are more than 20 students, and I didn't know what the number was, Matt, I didn't have time to ask you, but the number might be different, or Megan. When there are more than 20 students for a given class period of a certain class, students will have the following options. A, students will be grouped together when possible to receive instruction from a teacher so that the entire class will be remote-only instruction. For that period, the teacher will only teach students remotely. So what I was anticipating, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are going to be some classes in the middle school, and I'm thinking freshman year where they have English, speech, a lot of classes that all freshmen take, that there will be some classes, some sections where there'll be enough remote learners for a teacher to teach a whole section of remote learners.
Yeah, that was when we were going down this path before, we tried to look at some of the roadblocks that came in. That was the plan in terms of we have our core curriculum that we teach for freshmen, whether it's Algebra 1, Langland 1, biology, and sophomores have that, potentially juniors and then seniors. The concern then comes in with doing the whole day is then how do we offer all of the classes and give all of the opportunity, honors classes, AP classes, maybe career and technical education classes that our students want to take.
Right, so I have an option B for that, but there are going to be classes where there are going to be a number of classes where they're enough for a whole section.
Yes, that will take some work though. That's going to redo the complete master schedule at the high school.
Right.
And that will, just as we talked about in the committee, reworking a numerous amount of schedules to pull kids from certain sections and put them into other sections. Because we're going to have to free up a teacher for a section of, let's say, biology, teach that remotely. Those kids who are in that section now have to get pulled to go to other sections.
No, I understand.
That is going to take at least an extra week of work that we talked about with the counseling staff. And that's right around, if I throw a dollar figure I got from the payroll department, about $10,000 for an extra week of work for our counseling department in order to make that happen.
And then option B would be high school learners who are able to be accepted into ICC may at their own cost take an ICC course or courses that may count for DHS high school graduation requirements. Classes that are listed on the IAI site, general education classes, which coincide with a high school graduation requirement will be accepted as satisfying a high school requirement, including core course requirements. So in order to have some of our students, try to have less of a burden for our teachers who are, going to be overburdened, allow the option for a number of our students to take the dual credit at ICC. Right now, they can take those dual credits, but they can't count towards a high school requirement. So this is allowing those classes that are on a special list and that are coinciding with a topic of a graduation requirement, that those would be counted as the high school graduation requirement. Any questions or comments? Okay. And then number 2, when there are fewer than 20 students for a given class period, and is 20 the right number? Is
15.
That what
It's typically 15.
15, okay.
Under when we're talking about all in-person, of course. So.
However, it may be 15 in this section. It also depends. There's going to be other things in terms of do we have a staff member available for that section, because we're going to have to pull kids from those other sections. So 15, but it also could be if a staff member is available.
Okay.
Because for some of our classes, like I mentioned, Algebra 1, Langland 1, Algebra 1, the reason why we talk about those core
in a given class period of a certain class. So doesn't that mean available for that time? Or should I say available for a given class at a certain time?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and then this set number 2, when there are less than 15 students for a given class period of a certain class, students will have the following options. A, videotaped instruction will be provided that students may view on their own schedule. Teachers, I should say, by Dunlap teachers. Teachers will be available in their preparation period and before and after school to answer questions and provide feedback to remote learners. Teachers may be compensated for the extra period or periods in which they provide remote instruction, except when they have an entire class of remote learners for a given period. So what this is allowing is, we understood, what a lot of us wanted was synchronized teaching, okay? And we found out that while that's maybe allowed, it may be at a high cost for technology. I know, Teresa, you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
I just want us to look into that further for technology because, a lot of people, we did it in the spring. We used Zoom probably, maybe Teams, Microsoft Teams. I just want to have our technology department look into that to see if we can do that and what that cost would be. I'm just looking for more information.
Sure.
And how quickly does it?
Right, and how long would it take? I mean,
exactly.
The chances of, maybe being able to get that all set up in 2 to 3 weeks is maybe not possible. But Scott, is that something that you could?
I don't really understand what the question is. I mean, we can do Google Hangouts and do those types of things now.
We were told, or someone mentioned that it was not possible, the technologist mentioned that it was not possible for them to accommodate the live instruction.
Where the online kids are being taught at the same time as the in-person kids, and there's a camera and all that.
That we didn't
Correct.
have.
I sent you that information today from Ben. Our bandwidth is not sufficient to have every teacher live streaming simultaneously. It's just not.
Right. So I guess Teresa's asking, what would it cost to get our bandwidth? And are there some amount of classes I'd like to know that we can do? Would it be wise to do some pilots on this?
Right, just get the data. How many, you're exactly right. How many can we do? Mm-hmm. And just take a look at it, because I think I need more information on that piece of it.
So what I changed it to was videotaped instruction provided by Dunlap teachers, and with the potential, this is going to be potentially extra time. Yeah, they'll have the same number of students, but they'll be teaching in different platforms. They'll be teaching in-person students, and they'll also be teaching online students. And since they can't have them watching at the same time, they'll have to videotape a lesson, send it out to them, and then accommodate their questions, instructions, feedback, all that. So, there may be some consideration to extra compensation for teachers to do that. And then B, the other option for when there are 15 or fewer students is again the ICC option. High school learners who are able to be accepted into ICC may at their own cost take an ICC course or courses that may count for DHS high school graduation requirements. Classes are listed on the IAI, and then there's a website given, class list, which coincide with a high school graduation requirement, will be accepted as satisfying a high school requirement, including core course requirements. And, in thinking about the Edgenuity versus the ICC, there seemed to be a lot of concern that the Edgenuity was an online platform that maybe didn't have the rigor, that maybe didn't have the quality. I don't know about that. I know we use it for some of our students. But the ICC classes offered, I know the ones that my children have taken and that I've heard others have, and I think the staff agreed that, ICC offers a really good product. And it offers these students the opportunities to get a jump on their college education as well. So it's really a great opportunity, I think.
They're also having live streaming. So a student could choose to do traditional, where you're just doing it whenever, or you can be in class at a certain time, I guess like Zoom. So it's offering also a high level of instruction remote.
And interaction.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I need to speak up on this. A lot of what you're bringing up are changes in our working conditions. You cannot make a unilateral change to our working conditions without bargaining it with the bargaining union.
Right.
A lot of what you're talking about changes our working conditions. So this time it cannot be in the plan. The teacher will do this during the plan period because it violates our contract, which we haven't bargained yet because we don't have a plan yet.
We did consult with our attorney on this, and by the way, we can get on the phone with him, but we understand that, you know, we will have to bargain on the issue of that. So
the next step should not be in the plan.
We must attempt.
We must attempt to bargain. Okay. So we will do that. Okay, and then the next section, rationale for condensed learning schedule, is deleted. And then the next section is curriculum and instruction related topics. I don't think there's any change on that next page. ESL. Elementary ESL. So I just erased or deleted the last line that says due to the 1 o'clock dismissal time, there may be students who will still receive their services remotely. So with the full plan, students should be able to receive the ESL services the same way. And under the middle and high school ESL, I also took out the line, where students will return under a block schedule, which is each period 70 minutes. I took out that line in case we choose not to go to the block schedule. And the part about convening at least twice per week. So just changed it to the district will meet the state requirements of 5 periods of ESL instruction per week. And then I deleted again the line that said due to the 12 o'clock dismissal time, there may be students who will receive their services remotely because again, they can receive that in person. So,
page 22, dual credit.
Okay, the next section is the dual credit. This is just kind of a repeat of what was already in the other section. I just added a line that says, additionally, DH students completing IAI general education classes with a passing grade that coincide with high school requirements will receive high school credit and satisfy high school graduation requirements, including core course requirements. So just adding that in there.
Page 26.
All the way to 26?
Pretty sure. Well,
23.
I'm sorry, 22. No, you said that. There's nothing on 23 that I see.
Under human resources, at least it's 23, and mine says public works is. Which page are you talking on your screen?
On my screen, it's human resources, page 26.
What's the title above it?
Human resources.
Training and educating with COVID-19 safety procedures, public works.
Oh, that was just a space taken
Okay,
out.
then at the bottom of the page, you have some red line.
Work location at school unless individuals, work location will be at school unless individuals have a medical note excusing them from attendance. We talked about, the teachers being at school.
Page 27.
20, okay.
Teacher evaluation.
There was just, under class size, there was the word science was in there. It should have been in there. And then the teacher evaluation section, there was a section in here that said the district and the collective bargaining units will need to review, discuss, and bargain the potential impact of any learning model that the district adopts to meet student instructional needs. Our attorney advised us that we have to do that anyway. It's required by either law or the contract, and so we don't need that in our return to learn plan. So under operations and facilities guidance,
Entrances.
Face coverings must be worn at all times indoors, subject to the exceptions noted above, and those are when a 6-foot distance is maintained from others.
There is no language that pre-existed inside, as long as we're making sure we speak to it being outside.
Okay.
You can be further than 6 feet apart inside, so like a mask.
So whenever you're inside, mask, period.
Okay, so face coverings must be
Unless
worn
you're
at all
eating.
times indoors. Oh, okay, so even if they're 6 feet apart. Okay, so we'll
I
take.
would like to speak for a second. As we go through this, especially beginning operations, I would just like to mention, based on the fact that we have committees, our committee recommendation 11 to 0 was for a condensed schedule. A majority of the speakers we heard tonight were in favor of a condensed schedule. The union request was for a condensed schedule. I don't think we'll have an administrator in the room who's not in favor of a condensed schedule. And I would just like to ask, is there a reason why that is off the docket, or is the board okay with keeping that as an option to vote on?
David, what I think this is there was a proposal put in very similar to this for the condensed schedule. I think this is the same proposal for a 5-day, and then the board will have a discussion which option they're going to go with. Am I correct, Karen?
We could do that, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, that's what you did, is took the original condensed one, right, and just tweaked it for 5-day. And then going back to John's question or statement, you know, once a plan is adopted, then we need to sit down and say, these are the things that are in this plan, and then we need to sit down and have an intent to bargain if it's an impact on working conditions. But we don't, these are just proposals at this point.
And I might add that the committee's charge from the board to the superintendent was to come back with various scenarios and options. We didn't ask the committee to make a single recommendation. That was not requested by the board.
And I'm going to correct something you've said twice now to this board, Dave. You said your committee voted 11-0 unanimously for this condensed plan. Was I on your committee? Was Teresa on your committee? Was Kevin Kemba on your committee? Did you have positive votes from us for that plan? You did not have it. You did not have it. What happened was our committee was working on a certain plan up until the 5th of the 6th committee meetings. And then you surprised us with a completely different plan. You didn't say this was an option, this is something we need to consider. You said this is what we're doing. And Teresa even asked you, is this the only one? Yeah, this is the plan we're going with. So we looked at each other, and that's when we made it clear that we were surprised. We didn't know if this was the right direction. And so you did not have our vote at that time for it.
I would have included that. I want to speak to this. You have both done a great job on the committee. You contributed valuably to the conversations. I did feel there was a divide at that point, but you asked when we worked that we have a viable alternative plan to having regular or to having full day, which we had put together some options for lunch, which we were concerned with what we could consider in certain avenues. I am most concerned with hearing that we're looking at a full day, for example, high school, 7-class block. We did not discuss how to make that happen. We talked about how to make 2 or 3 block work or a scheduling block. So that would be a lot of my concern, especially that's just deviating from some of the logistics we really tried to dig into.
And I just want to make a comment too. As board members, I felt I couldn't, vote for a plan during those committee meetings. As a board member, I have to listen to all the proposals that come to us before I can make that decision. So, I know Mike nor I, at that time, it wasn't our place to do that, just to let you know from that perspective.
So I'm suggesting in the document you're looking at, board, to take out the subject to exceptions, because face coverings must be worn at all times indoors.
Right, that's 100% like we made.
Okay, and so under lockers, I might have just reworded it to locker use will be prohibited until deemed appropriate based on social conditions.
School conditions.
School conditions. Sorry, I have my glasses on. Okay, no changes to the next page or the next page.
Do you want my glasses?
No.
They probably need to see at lunch.
Okay, and then the next one under lunch. I just took out if lunch is served in the schools and changed it to the following considerations will be followed. And then I added another dot point in here. This was just all me, but families are encouraged to prepare sack lunches for their students. I don't know if that should be, it just seems to me like a safer thing than kids going through a line, so, is everybody okay with that?
Where are they gonna put it? Just carry it with them all day? They don't have a locker, right?
That's true.
Put it in your backpack, bring your backpack to class.
I guess that's true.
I mean, that's where they usually go, so.
Yeah, eat it all morning.
Right.
Yes.
They like. And then under physical distancing, social distancing is encouraged.
It will be, social distancing will be enforced.
Oh, will be enforced to the greatest extent possible. Right. Nothing on the next page. And then under transportation, upon entering the bus, staff will verbally check with students to see how they are. Follow-up questions will be asked. If a student indicates he or she does not feel well, symptomatic students would need to be picked up at their bus stop by a guardian within a 5-minute window of symptom identification or at the school following drop-off. If the guardian does not arrive at the bus within the 5-minute window, the student will be isolated at least 6 feet from other bus riders during the remainder of the trip to school.
I think that's going to be a challenge.
That's gonna be a nightmare.
I don't know how you can keep kids 6 feet apart on a bus. I mean,
can you reserve the first?
That's what we did have that conversation, and maybe David, you could comment on that in our meeting about putting plexiglass maybe in the first window and isolating those kids on the first seat.
We didn't talk about that to the extent possible.
Right.
In the front seat, our preference would be for ill students not get on the bus. We
Right.
had some heavy conversation about the concern about a kid being conducted for a bus stop, for example, so we wait 5 minutes, isolate the bus as extent possible, take to the school building, and then
5 minutes is going to be.
I think you're right. Yes.
So should we say the student will be isolated at least 6 feet from other bus riders when possible?
And keep in mind in this document, Karen, several times it says if temperature is over 100.4.
Okay.
It's just make sure we correct all of those.
Okay.
It's
So
here as well.
every time the 100.4 is mentioned, we need to say 100.4 or over.
Or greater, right.
Or over. Okay.
Here's temperature checks are required. I think it's kind of
Under transportation.
Yeah, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet point.
Oh yeah, and I forgot that one. So under transportation, temperature checks are required of all employees before clocking in. I think it was just missing the word "are."
Yeah.
Hey, and this is Cheryl. Sorry to interrupt, but once we get done going page by page through your edit, could we move the speakerphone so I can hear everyone? I can hear Karen quite well.
Okay.
But then it goes off. I can't hear anyone on the other side of the table. So that would be great. Thanks.
Okay. Remind us if we forget. Okay, visitor process. Any visitors will participate in mandatory health screenings for entry. Volunteers and activities involving external groups. So I have deleting the non-staff visitors will be prohibited. If exceptions are made, visitors must be approved by the office. Do we want to put that back in? Visitation will be restricted to the main office area, and hand hygiene will be required.
So just the first prohibited sentence. Just the first 5 words.
I had suggested deleting that entire dot point. Non-staff visitors will be prohibited. If exceptions are made, visitors. I mean, what if a parent needs to come in to see a student or pick up a sick student or?
Well, then that's an exception.
Did we talk about visitors earlier?
Yeah, we did.
I think it should be consistent with what we had prior.
Yeah, let's have it be the same the way it was.
Okay, so repeat.
Can you just delete that?
Yeah, let's just delete this part since we already have it listed. Is that okay, David?
The only one item that I think is useful that we discussed was a drop box will be used for material. So if a parent does have a situation where they have a book or lunch, we'll have a drop box handy, which would just be a building.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to have it in one section. Great suggestion. So move the last dot point to the other section. Does anybody remember what that other section is called?
Visitor song.
What?
That a visitor up there under health and wellness.
Health and wellness, okay. So it's kind of redundant to have it twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was on page 7.
Visitors. Okay. And then next part under isolation. What? Isolation. Isolation. Students with COVID symptoms will need to be picked up from the school. I suggested adding or drive home if they drove themselves to school. Is that allowed, Alyssa? If a student has driven themselves to school and then they, find out that they have COVID symptoms and they're supposed to be sent home, are they able to drive their car home?
Yes. I'd say yes. Why not?
I think we want to add something in communication with parents or in conjunction with parents, because if a kid's sick and you send them home and they get in an accident because they're not feeling well, that would be terrible.
With parents' approval or? Comma, with parents' approval. Yeah. Everybody okay with that? Yes. Okay. And then the next section, I suggested deleting the whole paragraph describing this and just saying, the following supplies may be purchased. And regarding masks, I think earlier in the section there's something that says students will be required to provide their own masks. So I deleted masks for students, but just put replacement masks. What do people think of that? I mean, I think if we put in here, I don't think we're going to buy masks for everybody.
I think we need to have masks on hand in the event that the student comes to school without one.
Right.
And I think that's what that's for.
So is replacement masks okay with you? The language? Yes, they may be requested to bring additional replacement masks, but we will have some available in the event that they forget or someone's mask breaks. So for the dot point, it would just say replacement masks. This is a list of purchases that may need to be made by the district for materials.
Do we want to put district supplies that may be used to increase safety, just so we know it's the district, it's not the kids?
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, so
district.
Well, I had put added supplies that may be used to increase safety. Do you want to put district supplies?
Yeah. District purchase supplies.
District purchased supplies that may be used to increase safety. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes. What are those supplies? This whole list?
This whole list.
But it's the district that's purchasing it.
And it's just may. Some of them may be decided not to be used.
And Mike and Tricia, just to speak to the conversation we had, the goal as we were talking is to keep adding as we were finding potential items.
Right.
Now, some of those might not be needed, but it's just to give us a comprehensive idea of what we might need.
Yes.
And we may need more. It's just.
And then at the end, I just added some items that for some reason were put in a different section at the end. So I pulled them from there so there'd be one comprehensive list. So I added the materials to facilitate outdoor classroom, 4 sets of plastic barriers for cafeteria staff at DHS, build dividers, partitions in cafeterias, additional lunchroom supervisors to accommodate additional lunch spaces, additional staff to clean and disinfect each space between uses. So put that all together. Did you have any comment on that?
I was just talking about the masks that you were referring to, and Alyssa and her committee, they've already put in for the state that said they would supply schools with masks, but I'm hearing as of today, don't look, it's the state, so don't look for those to arrive on time. So we do have them on the supply list for parents. Many parents will probably want to provide something of their own anyway. And then we will have some, we already do have some on hand. We don't have enough for every student right now, but we will have some on hand for those that forget their mask or lose it.
Okay. And then under potential options for conducting lunch, I added, this is my own suggestion, only providing sack lunches, having the cafeteria staff rather than, the serving of food and standing there for much longer to have sack lunches prepared by the cafeteria staff and, maybe choices, different choices on the outside of the bag, but then they just pick up the lunch or have it delivered to them if
we decide to do that in the classroom so that it's just easier. And then, of course, students can bring their own sack lunch. So it would be available for purchase for students who want to purchase it, and then provided to those students on free and reduced lunch. And that's it. So, any other questions? Did you want to go back now to talk about the block schedule versus 7 period? Is everybody ready to talk about that, or do you have other questions?
Maybe, should I speak my piece on where I want to stand on this whole thing?
Okay, sure.
I'm going to stay with the condensed plan. I don't know that you've added up all these costs, and if you've listened to yourself the last several board meetings, you've said how much concern and how many dire straits we're in. You've told us 3 times the budget problems that we have, and you know how much, has anyone added this up, how much it's going to cost?
We started to.
Any guess?
A lot of it depends on the data we get back on what students are coming, and what plan we go with will determine a lot of that, so it's kind of hard to do with the variables.
I mean, I came up with 200,000 easy, but in a school district, you can double that probably. So you're probably $500,000 maybe?
I wouldn't argue with it.
I mean, is that, okay. And then when the school's closed by our governor here shortly, we all thought that, right? How many of these expenses do we recover? I mean, these things that we've spent $500,000 on it, they're just buy,
Well,
right?
some of them we don't really have a choice. I mean, the cleaning materials.
No, I'm not talking about that.
Okay, so which ones are you talking about? Like this additional substitutes?
You had substitutes and the counseling and the partitions. Can you even get those done in time? This is kind of an impractical ask to even have all this done in 2 weeks, right? To get partitions in the lunchrooms?
Can't do it anyway.
Well, then why are we talking about it?
It shouldn't be on there.
Okay. So
You can do it, but it's got to be sealing the floor. It's got to meet fire code and have egress on each end. That's just not, nobody's going to build a wall in the middle of their cafeteria or their gymnasium.
Okay.
So that was, I met with principals, elementary principals, middle school and high school principals Monday, and Mr. Etnier had a pretty good plan of how we could make this work, but he was going to do that, just partition off his cafeteria so he could break it up into smaller sections, but well, then the guidance came out Friday that can't do that. 50 is 50. That's part of the reason we're in here, not in the auditorium, is 50 is 50, and a space is a space.
So then that takes me to this 128-minute class idea on a block. I mean, I don't know how many of the teachers would think they can keep attention of a kid. 6th grader, my junior's not going to do it. My 6th grader, I'm sure, wouldn't want to do it for that long and have increased learning. You're worried about loss of learning by cutting out school early, but then you're going to double up their time. They're going to be sleeping half the time or not paying attention, so you lost it anyway. So I don't think that's a valid class option for a 2-hour class. I'll stop there for now.
Okay. What do other people think about this?
Hey, do you mind, this is, we might move
Do you want me to repeat all that?
No. We're moving you. I think she's.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. I'm sorry, I forgot.
No. Go ahead, Teresa.
Did Cheryl, did you want to speak?
Were you wanting to speak, Cheryl, or were you just not able to hear?
No, well, I think I might have been over by Karen and Tim, so I could hear that, but I couldn't hear the comments, the back and forth. Maybe I think it was Dr. Bierman, but I just want to make sure I can hear all of you.
Thank you.
We're back in the middle now.
Teresa, did you have something to say?
Okay, I'm just going to make my comments. We've received hundreds of emails, I think Abby has mentioned that, for full day, for condensed day, for remote learning. And as a board member, I ran for the school board. I don't have any agendas. I don't have kids in the school anymore. I'm older, mine are older. And I advocate for the students. And for Tim's point, from the perspective of dollars and cents, absolutely. I'll be the first one to say, if we have income of 100,000, we can't spend 150. Absolutely, we're going to be in a deficit. But this is a crisis. This is a crisis for our students. And I don't know how many can say that e-learning was as beneficial or can support that they've got the same type of learning back in the March timeframe. We've heard that from hundreds probably of parents. I'm going to advocate for the students. And if we're going to have them here 5 hours a day, I'm going to propose for the full day. I don't have enough data that says why not. I understand there's risks. There's risk with everything, but I'm not willing to take the risk for the students' education because that's why I'm here. Especially for the IEP students, 504 students, any student that has any learning disability, any special need, I feel we're failing them. We have a high percentage of students on free and reduced lunch that need that. So I will be advocating for that. I understand everyone and the risk, and we're giving parents that opportunity to have their child in person or remote. And I think, and I've asked this question about technology, to make sure that we can have some type of technology available for the students. When we're in a crisis, that's what reserves are for. We all have rainy day funds at home. The refrigerator goes out, right? I'm not willing to put that, I'm willing to dip into reserves for this piece. And also we're getting CARES money as well from, I don't know when it'll come, we know the state, right? Or we know the government when it'll come. But I just want to let everyone know why that would be my piece of it. And I'm going to advocate for the students here and for those parents who feel there's a risk, then they have that option, and I feel that we're going to give them learning as well.
Okay. And what do you think about the 7 periods versus block?
For my opinion on that, and I'll have board discussion, I think it's very difficult and for a high schooler, and some of you have high schoolers, just to have one block for a very lengthy period of time. So I want the board to discuss that piece of it.
Can I speak to the block option while that was talked about?
Yes, please.
So the big reason we talked about block, we talked about doing that the longer 128 minutes when we were first going down the road in our committee of trying to do 5 days in person as much as possible. And then it got shortened, obviously, when we looked at the condensed. The main reason why is for contact tracing purposes. Recommendation from the Illinois Department of Public Health. The big difference of a student knowing how many students that student has come in contact with, minimizing the risk and exposure to more students. So if we can keep it down to like 3 periods or 4 periods a day instead of 7. Again, less amount of maybe classrooms that need to be shut down, teachers that are exposed, students that are exposed. So that was the rationale. Some benefits that can come with it. Teachers, as we've talked about, being able to go outside. That gives some time for travel, for transitions to be able to do so. It also gives more time for if teachers are either involved or they have their students helping involved in the cleaning and the process of disinfecting the classroom, making sure we have time to do that, and there's less periods in which that has to be done. So from a safety and a cleaning standpoint, the traveling standpoint, and then just mitigating the risk, the bubbling of kids, trying to keep elementary kids in their classrooms as much as possible, contained, similar, we can't quite do it the same way for high school and middle school level, but trying our best. And that's where that came from. And so I understand the concerns that that's a long time for a high school or middle school student, completely understand that. But some of those other things that can be brought in, as well as the instructional strategies with our teachers, we have those times, but also then being able to give guidance into mixing up the content. We're not just going to be lecturing at them the whole time, creating those engaging learning opportunities, more time to work on things, more time to ask questions to get that help as needed. And so there's kind of a lot there, but those were the main reasons for going towards a block to begin with, starting with the mitigation and then those things kind of there.
And you feel that the students would be okay with it, that you're the expert here in these kids' insight.
I mean, 128 minutes is definitely longer than, I mean, I've taught on a
So there's another option then, from what I'm
We
hearing,
could
right?
always expand, like I said, 3 or 4 class periods a day. We could definitely look at.
I'm willing to trust you that the teachers would not, you know, they know when there needs to be a transition.
Absolutely.
They know that you could maybe take the first 16 minutes and do whatever lesson and then do the practicing or whatever. I would think that the teachers would know how to vary their instructions so that they can keep the students engaged. And of course, will always be 1 or 2 students maybe that will need a little bit of extra help in that regard. Anyone else have an opinion on block versus 7 periods?
Well, I have a question. This wasn't our committee, but we got a little bit into it because of facilities. One of the big concerns, if the kids can't use their lockers, is they're going to have to put everything in their backpacks at the beginning of the day and carry it with them the entire time. Megan, what percentage do you think of our classes have their books on the computer so they wouldn't have to carry a big heavy book with them?
I mean, some have the classroom sets, but the problem with that is it's just the sharing of materials. And we would want to try and have as many of the online. I know our science, our math have online, some of our English and middle school level. Non-health, social studies, depending on the course. Yeah, it varies. I would say probably around 50–60% have online access for those tests. So that's a positive option for that. So there's books to carry, obviously.
And the idea behind the blocks is they would have fewer books to carry anyway.
That could be another
each day, correct?
Yes. When
So,
I taught on block scheduling, kids a lot of times had their like A-day and their B-day back, first through 4th hour, and then their 5th through 8th. They only need the materials every other day.
but you think it could be structured so there's more than blocks of 128 minutes?
You mean less than?
Or less, I'm sorry,
Yes,
less, yes.
We could draw out that, 3 or 4, 3 was chosen from the standpoint of, again, mitigating that risk. It's even less, less students that are exposed. That's why we stay more on the low end of the number of periods. 4, that's just another class that potentially could have that exposure risk. But yeah, we could look at that. That's absolutely something we could look at to get that 128 minutes down.
Do you know what it is?
If we did 4,
Off the top of your head.
While Megan's looking, meeting with the middle schools, Jason and Antonio, they have 5 schedules already built. So there's a lot of options there for them as well. So their schedules are ready.
What do you mean? They will be able to do either?
They'll be able to do either.
Can they do lunch?
Yeah. Meeting with the principals, they are all, they're professionals and they're hardworking. If we're told we need to do this, we will work hard to get it done. So yes, if that's the direction it goes, I'm confident our principals will get it done.
That'd be 96 minutes, right?
I got a question on the lockers, Mike. The reasoning for that was you're going to stop the kids from socializing by not going to the lockers?
Yeah.
Touching the lockers, less things to clean every day. I know they're going to be touching.
I think you're kidding yourself. So.
Yeah.
If anyone else agrees with me, but.
Well, it does eliminate one of the main gathering places in the school if we eliminate the use of lockers.
And that was a recommendation from several sources.
Okay, I guess I feel comfortable with the 4. I don't have a strong feeling about it, but I don't know. Maybe I think we should yield and see how they can make it work out.
I think it's just a long time. I don't know how kids can pay attention that long. It just,
they can stay on those,
I just think it's really hard for a student to go 128 minutes. I don't even think they do that in college. It's just a long time. I don't know how many, I don't know how many of you go to church, but
Hey, Ann, I keep to interrupt, but I can't hear you.
I just think it's a long time to sit for 128 minutes, even for an adult. So I'd like to see at least 4 classes, and what I like about the 7 is it keeps the schedule we've had. So these kids that are wanting to do a CNA program, we got an email from a lady, and she said her kid, the CNA is at ICC, and that's actually quite popular for people who are interested in medicine in any way. And she said her student will be forced to do the at-home because the schedule won't work if she does the CNA program. So
we're in contact with ICC too about that timing of the period. They aren't sure officially what that time schedule is going to look like for those students yet, or if they're going to do virtual or hybrid or after school as well. So we're getting more information on that.
I don't know if it's just that. If you've got a student who wants to do, I don't know, perfect or some sort of co-op thing. I mean, what's nice about the 7 is it's what's always been done. And I know we're in a different, very different time, but students do have the choice to stay home too. So that's why I'm a proponent of the 7 kids. Yeah.
So Abby, in terms of what we approved today, will we just leave, are you suggesting we leave that part out until?
Well, I think we're going to have to see how it's going to work for them, for ICC, and they may be able to make accommodations. I feel that maybe we should let the high school figure that out, that piece out. I understand the rationale behind the block. I understand what you're saying about the 7, but I think
But should we say not 3 or not?
No
7?
less than 3. I guess you could say no less than 4. If that would make you feel comfortable. Possibly up to 7.
What is it? I agree. I think we need to, just exactly what you said, Abby, let them come back to us. But I think you need to have some type of language in there.
Yeah.
And I think what Abby's recommending is to indicate no less than 4 blocks, right?
And up to 7, based on how they can accommodate the schedule.
I'm not. I would, while you're talking about times, and you were worried about the IEPs and the 504s, I realize they need more help and less instruction time, but I got confidence in the teachers that they're not going to let them fall. I think they'll pick up somewhere or add another teacher to help fill in where someone's short. I mean, there's other avenues to get extra help. I mean, the school's not the only place you get support. I mean, you can do something in the park or find a church family or play some table games at home. People don't know how to do that anymore. I'm just recommending things that if you think the day is going to be over too soon to do what to do with your kids, think of some things out of the box maybe to grow your community skills a little better. I don't know how what the special ed teachers said about thinking less time.
Yeah, I think by law they have to have so many minutes, and I think at the end of the school year there was some concern that possibly some of the students weren't getting the required by law minutes that are spelled out.
So why can't we make them just do what they're required? Is that not good, or do you want more?
Well, they're saying, go ahead, yes.
In our return to school plan, there is a section that covers special ed 504 related services. IDEA is different than ISB, and so the IDEA doesn't give us that guidance to be flexible with IEPs and 504, so we can't make a plan and change anything regarding that. We have to give the students their required minutes, but a majority of our students in the district have minimal minutes that can be met in a short day. And if they can't, those are conversations that I'm having with parents on how do we sit down as a team to look at that. Even with life skills students or instructional that are more in self-contained classrooms all day with a majority of minutes special ed, those can be offered when they go home with remote learning attached to them. Of course, that's my biggest priority is making sure students get what they receive. And we have amazing special ed teachers and amazing general ed teachers that will make sure they get accommodations and modifications and their minutes are provided by the course.
Thank you. That's been something that's been a constant plea from the emails we've received, that we have not been putting enough time or conversation into the experience or conversation about children that need extra help, extra accommodations. Now, I know in the committees we spent a lot of time talking about that those situations would be addressed. Of course, we're not publicizing it. There's not been a lot of communication online, but I just want those parents to know that it is going to be addressed. I received several emails, and I want to thank Matt Andrews and Alyssa because we have been forwarding emails upon emails because there are numerous detailed questions that we simply can't, first of all, didn't have time to answer, and second of all, a lot of these things need the specialization that you offer in. And Matt, I just want to say thank you so much because you've done an excellent job addressing those emails, both of you, so thank you.
And I will say that, just given my number for them to call me because it's an individualized education plan. I can't give you a blanket statement of what that'll look like because there are over 600 individualized plans that we have to have discussions with as a team with the parent, guardians, and the case managers. And so I've already had some of those discussions. I take days off, of course, like some of us, but I've given out my personal cell phone so families can personally reach out to me because I want to have those conversations to ensure they feel confident and that we're prepared for their students.
Thank you so much.
Could I make a comment?
Yes.
I just want to let everyone know that I represent all students, and the decision I'm going to make is based on what's in the best interest of all students. So I just want everyone to understand that as well.
Well, and when you're mentioning 600 students, does that include your 504 students, or is that your IEPs?
These are IEP students, but we have so many 504 students that they're still in the same situations. We want to make sure that they're looked at by the counselors and the staff and the parent guardians to make sure that we're providing those accommodations. Which I can say, when we went to remote learning in the spring, we have excellent staff that are communicating with those families and ensuring and working with the general teachers to make sure that their accommodations and modifications are being made.
I think for 504 students, a lot of these are like ADD students, and I'm sure there's many others, but being in school and having structure is an accommodation unto itself. And so when they're gone half the day, it's a lot harder for parents to deal with that. So I'm just saying that on the 504 side, because they get the counselor, they're not getting the special ed teachers. So it just seems to work better when they're in school.
They're only gone 2 hours. They're not going half a day. They're 5.
Well, I think if they're doing, what do you mean 5?
They're here 5 hours. They're not gone half a day.
Well, before for the half day it was 3.5 hours.
You mean in high school they are, you're right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so.
Hey, Cheryl.
Yes?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I could hear a couple people weighing in where they stand. And I thought I'd throw my 2 cents in. Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so clearly like Teresa said, we've gotten lots of emails, and they were phenomenal. And I really appreciate, all the different perspectives and really good information for us to consider. And I apologize for not responding to all of them, but I think we did it more as a district, and I think Matt did a wonderful job for us. But everything was duly noted. There's no perfect solution, clearly. But I think what our district is doing is good, and could it be perfect? Well, there's no perfect solution. But we're offering in-person, like students in-person learning, which we know all the benefits of that. And also the remote learning opportunity option. So I think that's the question is whether it's condensed or full-time, the in-person piece of it. And I think, we're trying to focus on, meeting our mission statement to, have our children meet their maximum potential through either option, right? And we have a lot of key pieces here that are critical, not only for our students, but also for our teachers and administrators and staff. And so I think the health and safety issue is our top priority, to the best of our ability. And then also the equity in learning. So all students can meet their potential. And also there's a huge piece that been communicated to us from the administration and the committees on the operational logistics feasibility on the health and safety guidelines, so we can take care of both our students and teachers. And then there's this piece about, synchronized learning versus outsourcing it. That's a big piece. I see, after being on board for a while, that we have to set the policy and direction, and then we need to know the feasibility to implement anything that seems like the best way to go from our experts. And I think teachers have weighed in, administration. I looked at, and I'm sorry, I'm rambling just a bit, but, bear with me. I looked at option A online on the board book and option B. And so option A is 5 days a week, full day, and option B is 5 days a week, condensed schedule, right?
Yes.
And we know, the remote learning, I hope that will be with our teachers, because I think that's the equity that we need for all of our students to help them and educate them. When I went through the pros and cons, I saw like the cons. I focused on the cons more than the pros, because that's the most important piece, for the health and safety of our kids. I'm not seeing much difference between the full-time cons and the condensed schedule cons. And the one thing that it seems to be, because I wrote full-time same, full-time same, full-time same, condensed same, it all seems to be some of the same. The only difference, because like there's the master schedule issue for on the full-time schedule, like master schedule counselors is on the full-time list, but I think that would still be needed, even if you did condense. The class list, I think that would also have to be dealt with if you condense. I saw staffing issue on the full-time list, but not on the condensed schedule list. But if you have people that are ill, it does, staffing, that would be the same. And so the one thing that I saw that were different from full-time versus condensed is the lunch issue, which will be challenging, and can we address it? Can we do it? And masks, yes, they would have to wear masks longer. But the staffing and remote learning, if we can address that, that's a key piece, because I think we're seeing from stakeholders that, they don't want to party educating their children, because that's why they came to Belmont. And so I don't know if it can be overcome, and these are the key things for health and safety and education of our kids, so they can meet their maximum, potential. And if those are answered to where we can do that, then I agree. I couldn't hear everyone speaking, but the difference between, the condensed schedule, hours of the day, they're already in the building. And so, they have that exposure risk for, health and safety. And then if we extend it, if we do it and, protect the health as best as we can, because, that's key for both our students and our teachers and our staff and their families. And if it's equal between the two, condensed versus, full-time, I can't see the difference. You know, that because our kids need to be in school, we all, and we may end up in remote learning in the future, but what can we do now to help our students? I mean, that's our mission. What's best for our kids, what's best for our district, and our staff and our teachers. So that's my 2 cents that lasted way too long. Sorry.
Thank you, Cheryl.
And it doesn't matter if you spend another $500,000, Cheryl, right? Does it matter, Cheryl, how much money you spend?
Tim, do you have a number on that?
Nobody does. You want to give them a blank check or what?
I don't think we're talking about a blank check. We're talking about a couple hours more a day. And unless we can put a number to it, then I don't think that's a statement that should be made. And we should look at the facts and data and the financials.
You didn't.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, any further discussion?
Well, would like to talk about substitutes if we're done talking about the actual plan.
Yes.
Okay. So one of my big concerns with the full day plan is just the staffing. And so I think that we need to find a solution for having enough subs, because a lot of those subs are teachers who are retired or other elderly, people who are older, and so there'll be fewer subs and we'll have more of a need. So I'd like to talk about, I know Dr. Bierman sent us kind of the comparisons of the other sub rates, but I would like to have, as a part of this, where we increase the pay of our substitutes, at least to match District 150, and also to have this situation, which we used to have, where if a sub did half the day or just a small amount of time, they would only be paid for those, a very small amount. It wasn't worth it for them to come to the school and to sub. And so I think we need to go back to that. And I know, Dr. Bierman, you had an idea from another district, or?
Nobody's going to come sub for an hour. I mean,
yeah.
We'll say $13.50, something like that for an hour. You're not going to get a sub for an hour, so, and that's commonplace. So it was, you get paid for half day or full day.
Okay. That's quite common. And, and then too, if it comes to the point for the first semester, if we have to hire a few permanent subs that could be rotated if necessary, if we have illness, I'm sure that's a possibility that we can consider for the short time. And I have to agree with Teresa. I mean, this is a pandemic. I don't know if they consider it a national disaster like they did with FEMA. FEMA would give us reimbursement when we had all that snow problems to be removed. So, there may be other opportunities for reimbursement in that regard. But this is an emergency. This is what we save for. We don't save for extras. We save for times when we need it. And this is a time when we need to invest in our children and their education. I'm sorry, no fault of the teachers, but these children were shortchanged last year. And nobody asked for this. The teachers were shortchanged. Parents were shortchanged. And I think if we have to spend a little extra money to make this work, I'm willing to do that as a taxpayer and as a board member, because I think our children are worth the investment, at least for the short term. Hopefully this pandemic won't last for years and years, but I think it's worth the investment to invest in our children.
I agree, Abby, and I would just add that I think I would be in support of hiring some people who are just subs, like, every day they're assigned to a different place, or, they're assigned for a couple weeks, and I realize those people will have to be paid, full time because that's the law, but I think we need, I don't know how many of them, but maybe 4, 5, or 6. But I think it's something that we have to do, and I agree. This is what you have reserves for us for these exceptional circumstances.
And I think that people would be more likely to do that if they knew it's a full-time position, or rather than day here, day there. I also know, and I don't get on social media often, but I've seen where someone forwarded that many of the parents who are qualified are trying to get information on who could sign up to sub, so that might be another resource for our parents as well that are qualified.
And that was the second point, recruitment. I mean, I think we should have a district communication that goes out to parents, pleading with them that this is a year where we really need subs, and if you are able and have the qualifications, to please consider subbing to fill in for the needs that we are going to have in our district, which could be significant.
It's on the form that will go out tonight.
Okay, great.
So I just got to correct it. I don't think we had an emergency situation to say we have to dip into reserves for the emergency, because we had a plan that would work fine. So I don't like me saying it's an emergency, but if you want
there are some things in the budget that are going to have to be spent regardless. And there's also going to be a need for subs probably regardless.
And Tim, I understand your point, and I respect your point of view. You have every right to address that. And if you have other comments, please feel free.
Yeah, the mask is going to be a huge issue, and you're going to get rebellion. And the schools, the teachers can't handle the rebellion that they have now. And then you're going to want it all day long. I'd be very comfortable with them taking their mask off in their seats, but I know you don't like that, so that's why I don't want to make my kids sit in a mask all day long, just to appease our governor and his ISB arm. And I know daycare was a problem. It's a challenge. What would you do when we went remote? You got to have a solution for then too, right? Or some people think we're heading that way anyway. I mean, I hope you would have a neighbor or some church friend or someone that can help you then. I don't think that's the reason that we choose our plan on this whole Dunlap community based on some that need child care. And maybe the school can help too. The school sent an email out where they might be able to help do that too. I just disagree with your theory. I'm not getting much traction with you, but just so you know where I stand. And I think a lot of the public stood for this too. You know, half of the survey, or more than half, said they didn't care for these things all day long. And we didn't listen to that. Of course, that's the government. But why did we ask? I don't know.
I mean, I have a concern with the masks too. I just don't see a way around it. I mean, I think it's going to be difficult for students to do, and I feel bad that it's going to be a difficult situation for them. But I don't think there's anything we can do.
We can lessen the time of punishment. That's what I'm saying. We can lessen the time that they have to wear it.
Tim and Teresa both had asked for some numbers, and I've got some preliminary numbers. The Edgenuity, if that's the direction this goes, a site license is $45,500. We're looking at $10,000 to pay the middle and high school staff to come in and redo the master schedule. We'd have to increase nursing from 5.75 to 8 hours. That's a cost of about $7, and this is all out of Alyssa's committee. I mean, I'm not telling you things that they didn't already tell those people on that committee. That's $78,000. Karen and I talked today, if we did 4 subs hired as long-term subs to be available every day, you're looking at very low end, $180,000 at first year teacher salary pay. There's other costs that we will have to bargain with the DEA as far as if teachers are teaching extra classes outside their regular day. They're going to expect compensation. Our current overload is $8,958.59 per overload. So depending on how many of those, if that's the direction that goes, again, I'm not trying to bargain that now, just stating past practice has been that's the cost of an overload. So those are some numbers that I do have.
But no
So
precision.
the cost of the overload, though, is the cost for teaching an extra class, so an extra 20 to 30 students?
It's not contingent on how many kids are in a class. It's a class.
A class.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So it doesn't matter that they'd be teaching the same number of students, it's just that some would be remote and some would be in person?
Because of no preparation period.
Yeah, if they have to teach their entire load and then are asked to teach remotely outside of the day, there's time is money, they're going to expect compensation for that. And our compensation past practice has been we pay an overload and that's the cost.
Okay.
Dr. Dearman, do you have a ballpark for how much money the federal government we might be expected to receive from the federal government?
CARES Act about $240,000.
$240,000?
That's for everything. Cleaning supplies, materials, of which we've already spent a good deal of that. Okay.
So what were the partitions? Are we not able to do the partitions, or what would the cost be for those?
We're looking at, through Alyssa's committee work, for some of those speech classes.
No, I'm talking lunchroom partitions. Probably.
We can't do that.
Cannot at all.
No, there's no way.
Unless you want to erect a permanent wall.
Well, I didn't know if you were going to do that.
No, no way. I'm not going to erect a wall in the middle of the gymnasium. No way.
The commons I'm talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
It wouldn't be.
That's one of the large, I mean, look at the high school, that's one of the large spaces we have to have gatherings.
But you can't feed them.
And we're having a lot of conversations right now on something that we all agree is going to be temporary. This will go away at some point, and it could be really temporary depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks. So no, I would not want to build partitions at a very high cost for this.
So is the Edgenuity program, if we go back to regular, is that canceled? Do we get our money back, or are you locked into that $45,000 that you're going to pay? Is that what that was for?
Once a student is in their Edgenuity, that's their program,
They have to stay for the semester.
And how do we pay for it now? We have a few students that use that now. Do they pay on their own, or how does that work?
No, we have about 13 licenses that we pay for currently.
13 licenses, so that's by the individual.
Okay. And how much is it for the 13 licenses?
It's like 13.
It's 20 licenses for $13,000.
Okay.
They like the whole pricing, so that's why the $45,000 doesn't seem quite as much.
Hey, this is Carol. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought that we wouldn't have to do third party.
That's correct, at this point.
Okay, so we can do it with our teachers and provide the education that they all signed up for, even if they're remote, right?
That's what we're trying to hope for, yes.
Okay, and then the other question is just the staffing. With the teachers, we had this conversation last week. Are we able to staff our classes in all levels?
In what? I don't understand. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, so we have teachers, and we have, K through whatever, but for all three levels, do we have staffing?
Levels.
For in-person?
Elementary, middle.
So if I just speak to that, I think what she's getting at is, are we going to have enough staff to staff all of our elementary classes, our middle and our high? And I'll be honest with you, our committee started, we wanted to go 5 days, as much in person, full day, as much as possible. We wanted student safety, their learning, the staff student safety, and we ran into a few roadblocks. And I'm sorry this came as a surprise. Didn't want any of this to come as a surprise. One of the main roadblocks was the staffing. We, as of right now, 23 staff members saying that they have an underlying medical condition in which they may not be able to attend in person.
So they maybe could be remote teachers.
They could be remote teachers for us, so that we could maybe fulfill that aspect of it. For those teachers, if they can be remote, and we can fulfill those, but what if they are the only teacher who teaches an AP Psych class or an AP Stats class? So how are we going to staff that room where that teacher would be, even if they're still teaching it remotely to the students who wanted to take that class? How are we going to staff that room, especially if we're looking at the high school level with the AP, the honors classes, or classes students might want to take post-high school for that preparation? How are we going to staff that classroom so that they can still take that class? That's when we started to look, that was just one reason we started to look at a shortened day. And that is so that teachers, when they typically have their prep period, it's not a prep period, it would be supervision, so that they could step in, let's say, to that teacher's AP Stats class. They could monitor that class, they could help students. That teacher who normally teaches AP Stats is still teaching that remotely, they're still getting that content by a Delta teacher, but we have the staff available to do that. And so I'm going to be honest with going a full day, I'm struggling to fully wrap my head around how are we going to be able to offer all those opportunities for our students by our Dunlap high school teachers, by our Dunlap middle school teachers, and how that is really going to work without needing either the
may be not as many offerings, is what you're saying, and
Yes.
we understand that may be a problem for the first semester.
Yes, and so I just want that to
It's
be
not
known.
easy. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a lot more work to try to figure this out.
Yes.
Would it be possible to give parents the option of Edgenuity if a class is not available by a Dunlap teacher or by ICC?
I mean, yes, we could, but it's, as we talked about in our committee and whatnot, is that desire to, there's the continuity of the curriculum. So let's say they take an Algebra 1 class on Ingenuity, or they take a math class that we didn't have enough students to fulfill that need. Are they getting the skills that our teachers are teaching? Are they getting, they might be getting them the same at the end of the course, over the course of the year, but that teacher might teach them in a different order. They might teach them at a different rigor level. They have that relationship with that student. They can intervene. They have that personal connection with the teacher when they're not doing the third party. That's going to be very hard to replicate on a student. Now, is it a solution? Yes, it could be. However, from the committee, from what we've discussed, that doesn't replace a teacher in the classroom fully for our students. And so I do struggle with the fact of if we go full day with our staffing. I mean, Damon, I think you and I talked this morning, we have 31 subs currently signed up. And normally, do you remember how much that was normally? We have this
Last year was 145. We received that information.
Yeah, okay, so I was just, that, and when I heard that, that's just concerning too from the amount that have to be out on that with sickness and first. So staffing from our committee standpoint was, Karen, we spent a lot of time talking about that, Ann and Tim, and all the time that they put on the committee, that is a very difficult thing to potentially overcome. And a lot of work could be done, as you mentioned, Abby, in terms of being able to make this happen. Just very concerned about being able to adequately staff our buildings on the full day. And I want to go back full time. I have all teachers, educators. We want to be with our kids all the time. That's what we want. But during this time, it's just trying to make choices that will be best.
So it is possible, though, to have a sub just be the person who maintains order in the classroom and have a certified teacher be online providing content, correct?
Potentially, yes. Yes.
So it's really an issue of sub shortage.
The sub shortage is real. It was a problem before the pandemic. So I mean, that's not a surprise to anyone. But to answer the question, can we meet those needs with our in-house staff? We'll try our best, but the reality is no, we're going to, under this plan, we're going to have to spend some money either to pay people overloads, or we're going to have to outsource some of it to another platform, whether that's Edgenuity or ICC. Understand Edgenuity in its platform is a credit recovery program. It's not meant to replace, I think she used Algebra 1 as the example. Dunlap's Algebra 1. They're not equivalent as far as rigor goes.
But they do have, I was looking on there, they do have AP courses on Ingenuity.
They do.
They do have AP and honors. They do not have all the AP courses. And for the AP courses, we would have to buy the textbooks that go along with that course as well. So that would be an additional cost for anyone who's signing for an AP course through there. There's a textbook fee that we have to buy the text that goes along with the course that they have set up in Ingenuity. So depending on how many students sign up, how many books would be needed, that would be that additional cost.
So I think one of you told me, though, that a number of schools throughout the district are using a third party for their remote learning.
Other school districts in the area, yes.
Yeah, and so are they using Edgenuity or somebody else?
Edmentum, Edgenuity, Apex, those are the three main ones that I've heard.
Which one's the best?
Well, that varies from school to school. I've used Edmentum before. I can tell you Edgenuity is a lot better than Edmentum from that standpoint. Apex I am not familiar with.
Okay, thank you.
If we talk this thing out, can I ask, is there a reason we couldn't start with a condensed plan and maybe 8 weeks down the road flip it over to the other?
I think it would be hard to change again. You know, our students have been through so much change.
What would it be different? Would you just change the schedule? I'm asking.
So that is one aspect of the condensed schedule that the committee like is the fluidity that the kids have their same teacher, whether it's at the elementary, the middle, or the proposal, if we have to fluctuate between remote learning, let's say the governor says we have to do full remote learning, allows us that kids all have their same teacher, there's no changing of that. We didn't have to change the whole master schedule, we didn't have to change all the schedules to make that happen. Or, as to your point, if we went back full in person, none of those schedules change. We're able to leave things as is, we don't have the ingenuity platform. So it does allow that fluidity either way.
So when you're saying if we go back as usual, do you mean to the regular 7-period schedule?
Yes.
Okay, so
Full day.
7-period, then you wouldn't have the counselors, wouldn't have to come in and redo all the schedules, and that wouldn't cost $10,000 if they had the 7 periods.
Oh, I see.
No, I'm saying even on the condensed. So even if, because they're still keeping their same schedule, we went to the condensed, we could keep, we don't have to change the students' schedule that the counselors have already put in. We don't have to change the master schedule. We can leave it as is with the condensed. We don't need that $10,000 from the counselor. And then if we were to go back, as things were pre-COVID, they still have their same schedule. It's still those same first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7th hour. Instead, they just won't be on block. It'll just be all of that in one day like normal. Yes.
Thank you.
I like that. I'm glad you said that.
So either way, going back to pre-COVID is the same? Okay.
Nothing had to be changed. Okay. Because it's, God willing, we have a vaccine that we have at some point. We hopefully can get back to that at some point this year.
Okay.
Can I get a question that somebody will speak to it in terms of lunch? And Mike and Teresa can jump into. There was really only 3 options we really explored for lunch, and I just want to make sure part of the goal of the committee is just to flesh out information and options, right? So in terms of one of our 3 options was building dividers or partitions, and that no longer seems like an option based on the guidance of the city. So the 2 real ways to do it would be to space out around the building and use as many locations as possible, or to deliver food to the classrooms. And each of those has some unique challenges with it. I just want to bring that up in terms of if we do a full day over the lunch, that was kind of our effort. We couldn't find a way to cross that. It doesn't mean we can't. It just means there would be a lot of expenses and some real logistical problems that no one feels great about. But that bears exploring if we were going to go down that path.
Are any schools using like an outdoor tent with flaps? Or tents with flaps?
Some schools already have an outdoor seating area. For example, like a board, they already have a pre-existing area. I can tell you we're interested in getting outside as much as possible, but it's very much building to building. With 8 different buildings, some have a readily available space and can build something, some don't. And it'd be a little harder, for example.
Also, I did look, is it possible to use, and I don't know if you can use, if a public entity is allowed to use churches, but could DGS use Dunlap Prospect? Could Banner use Cedar Hills Baptist? Could Ridgeview use the Golf Learning Center as another space that's right
the
next
church
door?
allows it.
But, I mean, Cedar Hills has already indicated they would be willing to help out in that way if they needed to, so.
They could, if it's
I don't know, is it allowed?
Sure, we used to do it all.
So that, and I would think maybe outdoor tents with flaps might be another option. Because that keeps out the cold, and the rain, so that you could use those options for it.
Okay, we're getting detailed
Okay,
here.
so do you want a motion?
I'll make a motion that we start with the condensed plan, and after a certain amount of weeks, consider another one.
I don't think we're there yet. I think, don't we have to discuss
We're on E.
replacement?
It's all the same.
Well, I think the motion is until after we discuss E.
I thought we discussed it enough.
Well, we can, and you can make a motion in just a minute. If we need to talk about information regarding placement. The resigning board member will now be discussed. Is there any question regarding Cheryl, who's devoted many years to the Dunlap School District, is due to life circumstances, she'll be resigning from the board, so we need to discuss the process of appointing a board member for the remainder of Cheryl's term.
I think since her last meeting is August, that it would be good to start the process of accepting applications, regardless of what procedure we use for selection, just so that we can be in a position to fill her position in a timely manner. So I would be in favor of sending out a district communication that there's an opening or whatever we did last time to ask people to supply resume.
Letter of interest,
Letter of
resume.
interest and resume.
I agree.
That's how you did it last time, Teresa? Okay. Can that communication go out then? Maybe we can talk and maybe put out a communication.
I think it goes on the
sometime
district
next-
website, doesn't it? Yep.
We can post it.
Okay. All right, now the board will move on to the action item. I believe Mr. Wagable had a motion on the table.
So I'll move to approve this return to learning plan proposal 2021 school year as the condensed plan as the beginning option, and then intending to roll it into something more full-time after how many weeks?
If I can make a suggestion, if that's going to be your motion, first quarter would make sense.
At 8 weeks, after 8
9
weeks?
weeks.
9 weeks.
If that's the motion you're wanting to make,
That's what I'm making, but I
the
guess
timeline
we
should be
won't
9 weeks. Megan, Matt, if that's the motion, does that make sense to you guys' curriculum? Okay.
Do I have a second? There's no second, so I guess we'll move on to, may I have a motion to approve the FY21 return to school plan as edited and discussed this evening?
I motion to, I move to do the amended version as presented of the 2021 school plan. Did I say that right?
The motion is, I move to approve the FY21 return to school plan option as edited and discussed this evening by Kara Disher.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? May we please have a roll call vote?
Henry?
Aye.
Holshouser?
Aye.
Humbles?
Aye.
Wagenbach?
No.
Wisdom?
Aye.
Bluth?
Aye.
Disharum?
Aye. No more discussion. Motion carried. This concludes the action item portion of the meeting. May I please have a motion to adjourn to closed session? It is 9:15.
I move to adjourn to closed session for the following purposes as stated in the Open Meetings Act: the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, student disciplinary cases, collective negotiating matters, discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed, purchase or lease of real property, security procedures, and litigation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Disharum?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Bluth?
Aye.
Holshouser?
Aye.
Humbles?
Aye.
Wagenbach? Wisdom?
Motion carried. 9:16.
I would like to thank you for trusting your meeting.